Television and Armstrong. I'm Mark Hahn. With me, seated at the table tonight, Fred Smith from Titusville Area School District, and he will be providing some, I guess you might say, color, play-by-play, and analysis for us. We'll be talking with Fred here shortly. But there's a lot to catch you up on throughout the day. Again, primary election day in Pennsylvania. The polls opened at 7 a.m. and they will remain open until 8 p.m. tonight in just a little while. Voter turnout has been light today. The figure that I have heard from most people is about 20%. I talked with one poll worker this afternoon who said that she had writer's cramp in November at about noontime, and she was feeling pretty good at about noontime, 1 o'clock today. So turnout has been extremely light. Governor Tom Wolf was not particularly happy with that. He talked with a radio commentator at KQV Radio in Pittsburgh this afternoon, and to P.J. Maloney, saying that it was the duty of all citizens to get out and vote, urged people to get out and vote. KQV did an online listener poll along with their partners, the Trib Live in Pittsburgh. From about 9,000 people that they heard from, about 65% of the folks that answered the question, are you going to be voting today in the Pennsylvania primary, about 65% of those people said yes. So I suppose you can take heart with that, but turnout is going to be pretty light today. And again, we've heard about 20%. Registered Republicans and Democrats participating in a closed party primary, independents and Greens sitting this election out unless there is a referendum question on the ballot, and there weren't any in Northwest Pennsylvania. It's also my understanding that independents and those who are not registered Democrats or Republicans could also go into the voting booth and cast a write-in if they so desired. First-time voters and those voting in a new polling place were the only ones that needed to have an ID with them today. The weather started out a little shaky this morning. It was cool and damp, in some cases raining, but it has, in most places throughout western Pennsylvania, become a pretty nice day in shirt sleeves for most folks. And apparently most people dealing okay with the road construction in the area. That wasn't much of an impediment. Schools were open. Government offices were open today, except the courthouses, which remain open at this hour for voter services and electoral issues only. Municipal services still function. Post offices were open and delivered mail. The ballots that voters saw today and may continue to see until 8 o'clock feature choices for Republican and Democratic candidates for the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, the Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court, and the Pennsylvania Superior Court. There are also a variety of municipal races on the county and local level, including some county row offices, mayors, township supervisors, borough and city council members, tax collectors, auditors, and constables. At the state level on the GOP ballot, Sally Mundy is at the top of the column for a 10-year term on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. There are 6 Republican candidates for 4 open seats on the Superior Court bench, also 10-year terms. Emil Giordano of Northampton County, Craig Stedman of Lancaster County, Wade Cagarese of Blair County, Mary Murray of Allegheny County, and Paul Patrick of Philadelphia County. There are 2 open seats on the Commonwealth Court with 10-year terms. The Republican candidates are Paul Lally of Pittsburgh and Kristen Fasano Gannon of Media, Pennsylvania. In the Democratic ballots, Dwayne Woodruff of Allegheny County is seeking the nod of the Democratic voters for a place on the ballot for Pennsylvania Supreme Court. There are 5 Democratic candidates for the 4 seats on the Superior Court bench. Carolyn Nichols of Philadelphia, Jeff Moulton of Montgomery County, Maria McLaughlin of Philadelphia, Debbie Kunzelman of Beaver County, and Bill Kai of Allegheny County. There are 6 Democratic candidates vying for the 2 Commonwealth Court seats. Timothy Barry of Allegheny County, Joe Cosgrove of Luzerne County, Ellen Seisler of Philadelphia, Todd Egan of Lackawanna County, Irene M. Clark of Allegheny County, and Brian Barbin of Allegheny County. And across the state, we Won't be dwelling a whole lot on this, but just to let you know, voters in Philadelphia are picking a candidate to replace a district attorney awaiting trial on a federal bribery charge. The hottest contest in Tuesday's primary election is the Philadelphia district attorney's race to succeed Democrat Seth Williams. The 7 Democrats and lone Republican include a Pakistani American, a Cuban American, and a black Muslim, and a white civil rights lawyer. Big fields vying for mayor's offices in some of Pennsylvania's biggest cities, including Allentown and Pittsburgh. At the county level in Crawford County, Republican voters will see the name of incumbent Christine Krzyjak of Venango County on the ballot for the 4-year term of treasurer. The candidate for the 4-year term of Crawford County clerk of courts is incumbent Patricia A. Weatherby. There are no Democratic candidates. In Venango County, Republican voters will see the name of incumbent District Attorney Sean White of Franklin seeking approval for a run at a second term. Incumbent Sheriff Eric Foy of Cherry Tree Township is on the Republican ballot, as are incumbents for the Register of Wills, Recorder of Deeds, and Clerk of Orphans Court Susan Hannon, and for Coroner Christina M. Rue. Rue, however, faces some competition on the Republican ballot for her position from Jessica Ewing Falco. There are no Democratic candidates for the Venango County positions. Many school boards in Crawford and Venango counties are overflowing with candidates for dozens of open seats and seats held by incumbents in the Pencrest district, which includes 17 Crawford County communities and 1 Venango County township. 12 candidates contesting 6 seats. 4 incumbent seats are on the line: Jerry B. Dean, Mark Jarrow, Timothy Brown, Stacy Porter. All but 1 candidate is cross-filed, and that is Jeffrey Brooks in the Titusville area district, with sending communities in Crawford, Warren, and Venango County. 7 candidates are vying for 5 seats. The incumbents include Kevin O'Neill, Dwight Proper, and Lynn Cressman. All the candidates are cross-filed, but Proper, who is running as a Republican. In the Crawford County District, 6 candidates are running for 4 seats. 2 are cross-filed: Jeanette A. Filippa and Donald Sacco, both incumbents. Ross C. Prather and Paula Jo Lynch are filed as Republicans, and Eric Warner and incumbent Melissa Burnett are filed as Democrats. In Venango County, the Franklin School District features 4 cross-filed incumbents seeking a position on November's general election ballot, and 4 cross-filed challengers, make that 3 incumbents and 5 challengers. Incumbents include John Phillips, Brian Spade, David Graham, and Randy Seitz, whose name is not on the primary ballot. The newcomers are Major Smith, Jamie E. Hazes, Veronica Santee, Tracy Lyda, and Ron Richburg. The Oil City Area School District features 5 incumbents up for re-election: Mark Kerr, Joe McFadden, Nick Skakowski, Fred Weaver, and Karen Woods, whose name is not on the ballot. Challengers include Robert Hicks, Chris Hibbert, Jonathan J. Piercy, Diana S. Davis, and Jeff Henry. In the Valley Grove School District, 6 candidates are seeking to fill 5 seats on the school board. Incumbents Todd Carson and Melanie K. Anderson are cross-filed, as is newcomer Paul Barger. Incumbent Nicole M. McGill and Vance H. Mays are filed as Republican candidates, as is Joan Beach. And while many local municipal and primary election races show empty spaces on the ballots, there are some worth keeping an eye on. In Crawford County, registered Democratic voters will choose between 2 candidates for mayor of Meadville. In the fall election, incumbent Mayor H. Leroy Stearns and incumbent Councilman Sean P. Donahue. In Conneaut Lake Borough, registered Republican voters will choose between Mario Lewis de Blasio and John O'Grady for mayoral candidate in November. GOP voters in Randolph, Rome, Venango, and Vernon townships will choose supervisor candidates for the fall election. Democratic voters in Hydetown Borough will choose candidates for the Borough Council. Republican voters in Linesville Borough, Rome, Sadsbury, and South Shenango townships will choose tax collector candidates, while Democratic voters in South Shenango Township will also choose tax collector candidates. In Oil Creek Township, Republican voters will choose for an auditor candidate. Republican incumbent candidates for the various positions exist in Hydetown, Linesville, Meadville, Oil City, make that Oil Creek Township, Randolph Township, South Shenango Township, and Venango Township. In Venango County, Oil City's districts, there are 2 city council seats with incumbents up for re-election. Republican voters will see the name Isaiah Dunham on Republican ballots, and Democratic voters will see Michael Poff Jr. Oil City Republicans will also see the name of Michael Harvey for city controller. The name of incumbent Republican city controller Bob Cross does not appear. Republican Joseph Wilmer Sr., incumbent city treasurer, is also on the ballot. In the city of Franklin, there is a Republican contest for mayor between incumbent Doug Long and incumbent Ryan Rudiger. 3 at-large seats are open with 2 Republican incumbents on the ballot, Sam Lyons and Donna Fletcher. The 3rd Republican is Michael C. Delaney. There's a little bit more to go. And then we'll go to Jack Lynch. We have Jack Lynch on the phone, and we'll get to him in just a moment. We mentioned also in Franklin's District 3, Republican voters will see Fred Mays on the ballot and Jane DeLugos as well. But right now on the phone, we have Jack Lynch over in the Meadville area for us. And hello, Jack.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
I'm well, sir. It's good to hear your voice. Glad to have you with us.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I just wanted to point out a couple of things. I was listening to your sort of outlay in terms of what's happening here. There is an interesting race here in Meadville proper I wanted to speak to briefly, and it's for the Meadville mayor. You have a long-time, 19 years serving on council, Leroy Stearns, who is the executive director of the Crawford County Humane Society, well-known figure on the ground in Democratic circles and in general. He is running for mayor, and his primary opponent is again on the Democratic side, and that would be Sean Donahue. Sean is a business owner, as well as a state-certified tollmaker. He's been done Meadville City Council since 2013, and the deputy mayor from 2015 to present. Interestingly, there's a couple of burning issues locally. One is fluoridated water. It's been burning in various circles here. There's, of course, a pro and con element. It takes on a political landscape. That is on neither gentleman's webpage in terms of what they're doing. I will tell you this, that Leroy's been in the saddle for a while. He's been very involved in economic development types of things, in slum and blight. He's been able to put some tax-claim properties back on the tax rolls, and he sort of breathed new life into the city's redevelopment authority. He sees that as a key to the future. On the other hand, Sean, who's a relative newcomer, he comes at it like a lot of folks do, that his taxes being the #1 issue. And the city of Meadville has a stormwater fee, and he also would point out that the cable fee is very high for the city proper. It discourages growth. And he points out correctly that the city has most of the region, at least local regions, non-taxable properties in the forms of schools, churches, and the like. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this comes out. I did go across the street to the Democratic headquarters. There's no one there now, but we're hopeful that somebody will open the door a little later. That's typically the case. There's other Republicans that are running for that position, but I think the key thing that we'll focus on here tonight, in addition to the numbers as they come in on both sides, will be that race locally. Of course, you've got school districts. Pencrest has a slate on the Republican side that is headed by Luigi DiFrancesco, inclusive of his wife, and that's being vigorously countered on the Democratic side with some individuals who, would like to speak about the curriculum, things like that. One last thing I would say to you here today, I can pick up on it. There was a lot of energy that went into the fall. We all get that. That was the presidential race. Never saw anything like it in Crawford County, at least in recent times, in terms of numbers and turnout. And we don't sense that kind of energy here today. But it's interesting, too, because these Commonwealth judges, these school boards, township supervisors, and clearly local elected officials like mayors have a profound impact on the day-to-day world of, or can, on the constituency. And I think people sometimes forget that. We all get the presidential elections and the optics of last fall, but things like school district races, with curriculum increasingly sharpening up in terms of how things are taught, a lot of national talk about, what we're going to do with the Department of Education. These are critically important races, and let's not forget, at least in many locales, that for every local tax dollar that you, depending on where you're at, that you spend $1, sometimes 60, 62, 65 cents of that local real estate dollar goes to your school district, with the county getting about 17 cents and your local municipality getting the balance. So those numbers are important. We've stressed it all along. I just want to point that out, and I'll answer any questions you have. Looking forward to talking to you tonight.
Absolutely, and it is good. We're probably going to touch on almost everything that you mentioned tonight. Wanted to ask Fred, Jack, you had mentioned the importance of the statewide judges' races, and Fred, I wonder if you have anything on that.
Yeah, but probably the more important event will be the general election once both parties shake down exactly who they want to be in office. But that does have an impact on what kind of cases are picked up and what kind of rulings happen. I know that public sector unions are very watchful of what happens, especially in a similar type of event in California. The courts there, of course, brought up the issue of non-union members and how much they should pay, for instance, as part of their union dues and so on. And those kind of issues depend upon the makeup of the court. And I know the Democrats had a bit of luck the last time around because they picked up all the Supreme Court seats, for instance. In this case, though, talking about government-related issues, that's mostly going to be the Commonwealth Court, of course, since they handle those types of appeals. So it does have a big impact. A lot of people don't realize it, and I think we see less in the news about state court cases than we do the Supreme Court, but it is still very essential about what steps they take. Issues over the pension program, for instance, both for teachers and for other public employees, that could come up. Right-to-know cases under our state's expanding right-to-know law, which happened several years ago. Those all come before the court system. And
so there's a lot of new legislation that really hasn't been tested either, I suppose.
Right. Yes, absolutely, and that I know that judges are supposed to be neutral and impartial, but obviously that isn't the case, or else we wouldn't nominate both Republicans and Democrats to run for office. So.
No, you mentioned something really good there. The story that we saw this morning talks about a merit selection system that's being proposed, and it fleshed out a few of the details, but from what I gather, it's supposed to give opportunity more to women and minority candidates to have an opportunity on the bench. Right now, I think there's one African American woman on one of the 3 state court panels. Does a merit system make sense? It sounds like it's a little complicated to implement.
It is, and it will be controversial if it also depends upon gender and ethnicity. I think that I can't imagine that Republicans in particular would want to endorse a program like that, because when you hear merit-based, you think of based upon experience and education and things like that. So I know there are countries that do apply those types of demographics to how they select candidates. Some of the Scandinavian countries require so many women to be part of their parliaments, things like that. But even affirmative action, which just gives extra consideration when there's a tie, when people are applying for something that's controversial. So I don't know about including any type of demographic information. But as for merit-based, and it depends on what kind of impact it has on the election system, but there are people that feel that it being an elected system and it being partisan the way it is, that's not the best way to do it. But one good check on that we have retention votes, for instance, for the Supreme Court, so there's not as much partisan pressure as there could be.
One of the things that came up with this proposal is that the persons that would be nominated for the bench through a merit-based system would face a retention challenge at about 4 years,
yeah.
And move that up somewhat.
Right.
Is that more helpful?
I mean, if it was just a retention, I would say so. The length of time is supposed to keep judges and even, for instance, both state and United States senators more distance from the public, away from political hot topics. Yeah,
absolutely. Jack, I'm sorry we had you listen in on this, but you raised a good point about the importance of the judiciary Nothing local that I'm aware of. Anything local in the way of the judiciary that you're familiar with?
Not over here. I wanted to mention something very important. I think that the open judge positions are critically important on the merit-based system. Those kinds of approaches aren't really new. Let me just say this about that. In our democracy, it's kind of thing you get what you get. And we've been sending blacksmiths and bakers to Washington, D.C. for 200 plus years, and somehow it all works. In Ohio, for example, and it's not too widely known, but your county engineers are elected positions. I mean, what in the world qualifies an engineer, to run for office? There's all kinds of good engineers, and I suppose you could apply a merit-based system to something more like that in terms of a metric. I think that the critical thing here, and we're going to probably see a little bit of that maybe even tonight, guys, is that folks get keyed up on certain issues. The electorate gets fired up. Presidential races are obviously the high mark of that. But I mean, when you get into people who run for example, your school board, there's a whole host of reasons why people get involved. That's a non-paid position. So read those. That's the best thing I can come up with. Do we go merit-based for that? No, we basically elect our friends and neighbors to those positions based on their platform. And I think that those kinds of things are critically important. Nobody should complain about their school rates or taxes, the curriculum, if they didn't vote. These folks do have tremendous sway in terms of what's being spent, where, and how. And obviously, at the current state of affairs at the local level, with some of the legacy things that are embedded in your school district budgets in terms of retirement and the like, it speaks to a broader question about the entire retirement system. But clearly, what folks are always, if you read what they're doing when budget time comes around, we're trying to do more with less. They're looking at options for pay to play, and different things are in play here that have profound impact on the experience, the local experience in your school districts. And to me, as a taxpayer and as somebody who has children in the system, that's critically important. I think folks can't forget that. I think that's something that we all should pay keen attention to because it means something on the ground. And there's other things you could do. The state's looked at consolidating the pathonetary's office, taking that out of the elected ranks and putting that under the judgeships and things of that nature. Those to me are things that can and do make sense to look at, having been in county government. Those things can be looked at. But I mean, in terms of some kind of merit-based methodology put into place, boy, I'll tell you what, I think and there might be some good that would come out of that discussion, but I think it would be a very tall order across the Commonwealth to try to put something in play like that. So we'll see. There's always that local issue, and I'm sure there's issues in an angle I'm not aware of, but we'll cover it the best we can, and what we'll try to do here, if we can, and we'll reach out and get some, the candidates themselves, win, lose, or draw in terms of, how they're feeling and what's next for them, and of course we'll keep in mind this is just the primary.
Well, thank you, Jack, for your insight at this point. We'll be eager to get into some of these other topics as we move on. We'll talk to you just a little bit later this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
You bet. And Jack mentioned early in his conversation about some of the local races. One of them was the Meadville mayor's race. And of course, that is probably one of the bigger contests that we're taking a look tonight. Again, this is the primary where voters choose candidates of their party to represent the party in the November election. And so here in the Meadville area, John Battaglia, an incumbent member of council, is the Republican candidate for mayor of Meadville to be on the ballot in November, and two Democrats at this point on the primary ballot to see who will represent the Democratic Party standard for mayor in November. That is current Mayor H. Leroy Stearns and an incumbent councilman, Sean P. Donahue. So all three men very well known in the Meadville area, in the city of Meadville, and we'll be following that race when we have that tonight.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for hosting this event. It's late. I'm not going to talk very long. You'll be relieved. One of the things that we are very fortunate to have in this community is a council-manager form of government that is supposed to take the partisanship out of city government. Remember that politics is not doing the easy thing, it's about doing the right thing. We face challenges, we've always faced them, we've always come through. But to paraphrase Albert Einstein, if you do what you always did, you'll get what you always got. And so we need to stop thinking in terms of what we've always had and look forward to what we need and how we can get our way to the future. I'm delighted that people have input. The fluoride debate is wonderful because it's getting the community involved. It's getting people to express their opinions instead of just letting the status quo occur. So good night, and thank you again.
Mr. Stearns?
Thank you. Again, I'd like to echo thanking Meadville Tribune, Active Aging, and 101. I've had big shoes to fill, and I've enjoyed it in the last year and a half, and I'd like to continue another 4 years. I think there's a lot of great projects. I want to see economic development to expand, new businesses, new jobs, and to strengthen the city tax bases. Revitalization of the city business district by addressing the aesthetics of the buildings, parking, vacant buildings, filling them. And continue the communication with local government, outlying municipalities, local businesses, nonprofits, community organizations, and the residents of the city to ensure an open door atmosphere at City Hall. I enjoy listening and hearing what people have to say. I enjoy working with the organizations, your neighborhood groups, local businesses. You learn a lot, and if you listen, you can make changes. And especially when you got individuals that really care about the community, as we all do, to go out there and bring fun back. I know that sounds pretty crazy when I say the word fun, but I really love this city. I want to thank the voters that have kept me here for 19 years, hopefully 20 by the end of this year. And I appreciate their support, and I really appreciate working with the current council and past councils. It's not a one-man job. It's a teamwork. No matter what party you're on, we all have to work together to make Meadville what we want it to be. And I've had that opportunity. Thank you.
Mr. Battaglia?
Well, again, thanks for Armstrong and the Tribune and Cool 101 and Active Aging, everybody that made this possible. One thing that's great about a small town like Meadville is that if you're interested in politics, you can actually get elected. It's not like some places where you have to live there for 100 years before they consider you. You know, there's a lot of possibilities. And council is one of those organizations that, as long as I've been on there, they've always made a good deal of effort to work together. You know, there's not been any partisan stuff that I've seen, but so it's a good thing to do. One thing that's happened this year that I really like is there seems to be an awful lot of pride in the city. I drive up and down North Street, and they have those banners up, and up by the college they have those banners up. But that's important. You know, that's why it's important to have high school athletics and high school activities and things like that, because when you have pride in your community, people maintain their properties and do stuff that we want them to do. You have a great college. You know, we're almost always at odds with the college because they're tax exempt, but it's, you know, it's been here for a couple hundred years, and it's always been important. And one of the things that I wanted to mention is that, you know, as fast as we build new buildings in the town, as fast as I can build new houses, you know, the tax base never changes, because as fast as we put them up, somebody's tearing down some non-private. I saw one over there today. They were paving the lot at ARC there, so that used to be 2 or 3 buildings. But boy, that seems, you know, no matter what you do, you know, a lot of new buildings have been built, but this tax base has not changed only a few dollars in the last 25 years. Okay, one last thing. See you at the meeting for the fluoride, and if you think this was a long meeting,
Well, we'll try to.
It's on Star Wars Day.
Yeah.
And we thank Armstrong for the clips, and we thank you for joining us on Stream Television and Armstrong with our election coverage of the primary elections in Northwest Pennsylvania here, primarily Crawford County and Venango County. Another council race, or rather another council contest. It's not so much a race, but one of the other larger cities in Crawford County, Titusville, has 2 seats that are open on the council. There is an incumbent Republican, Don Frazier, who is on the ballot to fill one of those seats, and another Republican, Keith Bromley, a former councilman, who is hoping to fill the second seat. Recently, there was a candidates' night, and while Mr. Bromley was not there, Mr. Frazier was, and we did get a chance to hear from him.
So I guess I humbly ask for the citizens of Titusville that I really want to continue on with the work. We've got a great thing going on. We've got some new projects, which you know you're not allowed to say and talk about because some entrepreneurs are a little edgy and stuff like that, and you don't want to scare things away, and I understand that. But there are some good things coming to this community, and I'll tell you what. There's a lot of paving coming on. There's a lot of stuff. And I said to one PennDOT fella, I said, you're going to have a helicopter to get into this community. Emily knows. She's seen some of that stuff. And I was totally flabbergasted at why somebody would schedule all this at one time. So anyways, thank you very much. Please vote for Don Frazier. I don't know what my lever number is, but I am here to serve this community because it's a community I love, born and raised here. And what I didn't say about my wife when I married her, that when I was dating her, she's my high school sweetheart, I ended up finding out that I married the chief of police's daughter, so I had to be a good guy.
Thank you for your time.
Okay.
And those are probably the 2 races that we'll be keeping an eye on. One other that is of interest is in Vernon Township. And Vernon Township has a little bit of a contest, and we have a clip from some Armstrong coverage of the Vernon Township conversations here recently.
First, I'd like to thank the Meadville Tribune and Armstrong and the 108.
Cool 101.7.
Excuse me for that, for covering this and putting this together. I've been quoted a couple times. People have asked me, and I think it's even been in the paper, as I was saying that I would really make no changes. And that still's pretty true. But really, as I was thinking through that, we're going to have change here. We're going to have, 3 new supervisors. And actually, with the passing of Bob Davis, we're going to probably be adding the 4th by for the November election. So that's 4 new faces that will be on this board, the supervisors. Also, Dave Stone, our manager, is retiring at the end of the year. So all of us are, hopefully I'll be part of that, all of us will be faced with some new things happening. So I think we probably are all in agreement that things are running pretty smoothly, and we wouldn't jump in here to make radical changes. Next week I have my 5th monthly meeting as a supervisor, and over that time I've got to know our management staff, our support staff, from our secretary to our zoning to our roadmaster, the chief, the solicitor, and our engineer, and these people are doing a fantastic job, and I know that they will be there to help us through that learning curve, and along with working with Don Maloney, who's going to be the last surviving or the last person here on returning.
on the board, I think he will give us some good leadership also to move Vernon into the future.
Mr. Snyder, we're going to have to stop you at that point. Mr. Wagner?
Well, I was on the board, I was supervisor before for 2 terms. I look forward to, if I get elected, to being on the board again and working with the staff, which is good. The board that we have right now is very, very good. Some of them will be sorely missed when they retire. I was looking forward to a couple new programs that I think Vernon could do that I won't discuss, until I'm an elected official. But I think it's constant vigilance is what you have to have as a township supervisor. Constant vigilance of watching what's going on and working with the people here, the police departments, the fire departments, and the other local municipalities. You must constantly be vigilant and work with them in order to keep that high level of cooperation. And that's what I would like to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Froman?
Well, first I'd like to thank the Meadville Tribune for putting this together, Armstrong for televising, and the guys at Cool 101.7 for broadcasting this on the radio for those that didn't want to make the weather to come out and see us. I'd like to especially thank Darrell Ray back at the studio for covering tonight. Usually I'm the one that covers the politics at Cool 101, but as I'm running for supervisor, they brought the other fella in to cover for him. So thank you very much, Darrell. I would like to be township supervisor. I'd like to keep the traditions here. And like Gary said, you have to be vigilant. You always have to be watchful, because your supervisors are your protectors. They're the ones that make the rules that govern your day-to-day lives. And thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smith?
Well, I'd just like to thank you guys for putting this together, and obviously Armstrong, Cool 101. I think everything that I've seen come through the Planning Commission before it goes to supervisors just makes me want to push further into this. And I know there's a lot of fear of this whole changing of the guard, because essentially there will be 4 new people up here, and everybody's kind of a little up in arms about it. But I think we have good people here in the township. The zoning office, everybody. I mean, all the way through, as well as the police department. Everything. I mean, all the tools are in place. I think anybody up here would be a good fit for a supervisor. I mean, in my own personal opinion, I don't see any reason to be fearful of a changing of the guard.
Thank you. Mr. Prince?
Like they all said, thank you, the Tribune, Cool 101.7 Armstrong, for doing this. I'd just like to say I've enjoyed living in this township. One of the reasons I moved, we decided on Vernon Township, was the diversity of the township, the business. Where I live in the front yard, it's like city, where my wife, like living in town, where I was from a small town. I like the woods and stuff, and right behind my house is woods. I can go up and hunt whenever I want. But I'd like to continue to get involved in the township again in a different manner this time. As I said, I coached baseball and was involved with the kids up here at Roach Park. Definitely like to help the fire departments out still, police department. They've all been great. Have used the police department a couple of times, and it's been a wonderful experience. And also, I do have experience. I did serve on the water authority for about a year, but I chose coaching baseball. Coincided with that too much, so I dropped off the board, because at the time my kids and coaching was a little more important to me at the time. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And again, those were the conversations that we heard recently in Vernon Township, where there is a little bit of a contest for supervisor. There's 2 seats open there. And you heard from Brian J. Prince, Gary Wagner, and Gregory Smith, Republicans, and Richard R. Vroman, all vying for those 2 seats. Fred, one of the things that we were talking about while we were listening to these clips, watching these clips, you're a professional teacher, educator, I don't know which term you prefer, but I know some folks who get a little picky about one or the other, but you spend a lot of time in front of a lot of students. Last year, in about this time and through November, there was a lot of interest in the civic process and the election process. How about now? Not so much.
None.
Huh?
Yeah, they need reminded that local elections happen, I suppose, and we do spend time when we teach them about government in their senior year, going over local government, things like that. But yeah, there is kind of a disconnect, and even though important things happen at the local level, like leisure services going away and talk about what to do with the swimming pool, things like that, is typically, even though those also impact young people, they don't usually pay attention too much to that. And I think, well, even in the city council election, there's two positions and two people running, and that's
about all there is.
I don't think it's fair to criticize students or younger people, because it's pretty much everyone that...
That's a good point. I spoke with a couple of people today. One person here in the Titusville area. I think there's a lot of people that are still kind of smarting from the electoral process this last year with presidential race. Comment was, it's like, I'm done with the whiners. I'm done with all of that. There were a couple of comments about the president, and people are still, kind of unhappy, maybe with the turnout of the election, but also maybe with the way it was conducted. Do you sense any of that too?
Yeah, I mean, there's to some extent, people fixated on that, I think, and that's part of the problem. Is I think even Trump supporters, who should be the happiest with the way the last election turned out, they expect the president to turn around the economy for them and to improve their lives, but really it's local government that has a bigger impact on that and on entrepreneurs and job creation, things of that nature. I had a student, we talked about current events, because a lot of economists say within the next 2 years we'll probably have a recession, because it happens about every decade. And he asked, well, do you think that would be the president's fault? And I was like, no, I'm not going to blame the president for either a good or bad economy, because the president is the head of the government. He's not head of the economy.
Right.
We have a capitalist economy, and it mostly all happens at the local level. So that's really kind of out of his hands. But people fixate on that, and instead of going to and participating in their city council elections and county-wide elections, where that can really help spur a lot of growth, like with tax-free enterprise zones and local construction projects and things of that nature, and cleaning up and making zoning laws more efficient, things like that, which can help create growth. People kind of ignore all those things.
Well, people tend to get lost in the details, or after a while they hear, blah, 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 and
right.
It's not all that interesting. And that's sort of the formula. If you want to make change, you really have to take it into your own hands and get into the details and such. Right. And that's asking a big commitment for a lot of people. We were speaking this morning on the morning drill. To be in local government, especially a mayor or a council person or a supervisor, you don't get paid a lot for that. Maybe $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a year. It used to be you got a few benefits out of that. You don't get very many benefits out of that. But in turn, you put in about 20 to 40 hours a week worth of reading and networking and contacts and phones and dropping by government offices and what have you. And a lot of folks don't have time for that.
Right. Yeah, even school board, which is completely unpaid, a lot of people run for that and think, well, it's just a meeting every month where they vote. Well, there's also the committee as a whole meeting, and then they have to serve on multiple smaller committees, and the amount of information that they get to read before each school board meeting is pretty substantial. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that do get overwhelmed. In fact, there's people that resign because it's just too much, and with their other commitments in their life, they just don't have the time for it. You got to be, especially, one of the things people get concerned about are regulation and the control that government employees have. Most people refer to them as bureaucrats, but if you get elected in one of those local positions, you really do have to keep up on the reading.
Absolutely, you do.
Else it will be the government officials that make all the decisions. So I think that is one of the problems. Is it takes a lot of commitment, and even though we roll our eyes sometimes when you hear about somebody like on the previous clip that was on city council for almost 20 years, and some people chide that, but at the same time, that's quite a commitment to do it. There's multiple decades, and that's also another reason why maybe it isn't a good idea to not vote for someone just because they've been on there a while. Because I think as Americans, especially here in rural Pennsylvania, we do that. We see someone that's been there a long time. It's like, well, I'm not going to vote for him again, or her again. But in reality, they've been there a while, and they do know, and they can be a check against, what government officials do.
Well, that, and they've gained a little bit of traction, and they can sometimes make things happen.
Yeah.
Hold those thoughts. We have some clips from the most recent Titusville Candidates Night. We're very fortunate in several school districts in Crawford County, including Pencrest, Titusville, and Crawford Central, to have a number of people running for a great deal more seats than there are available. Let's hear from the candidates just last Tuesday night in Titusville.
In closing, my name is Dwight Proper. I'm very dedicated to this community. I'm dedicated to learning myself and helping others to develop as people and human beings. And I think I'm a caring, giving person, and I'm asking you for your vote in the primary and in the general election. I want to continue some of the things that I started. I am very passionate about public education. I put a lot more time into it than people think. Jake, it's more than 2 meetings a month. And Shar, in case you didn't know, it's a little more than 2 meetings a month. It's 2 official meetings. You could do it any way you want to. I give it 100%. That's all I have, and that's how I get behind things. So please vote for me.
Vote. Get out and vote. With people on TV or whatever, get out and vote. I would love to continue on with what I've been doing, working forward to keep doing the things that we've put in place. But we also have new people, new blood wanting to come on board. Listen to what you hear all of us say. I mean, it's nice to have veterans. It's nice to have new people. It's nice to have young people. It's nice to have people who aren't so young, but they want to get involved, okay? But that's a choice you have to make. The one thing about the board, it's dynamic. There's 9 people on it, along with the superintendent. We're a team of 10. It's nice to have a good cross-section of the community. I think everyone here has some great talents to offer, but I mean, again, I'd love to see another 4 years. So I'm please asking for your vote. Thank you.
Yeah, so just to wrap it up, I know there's kind of a disconnect sometimes with the voting structure, and a lot of the public only thinks you only go out and vote every 4 years, but I would tell you that it's important to you in a small community to vote on the years where a president's not being elected. This is the most important time to go out and vote. And when I was 25 years old, I was introduced to a guy by the name of Terry Stover, and he got me really excited about what was going on, and not only the local community and Crawford County, the Republican group, and at that point in time, the presidential election that we were seeing. And I'll never forget that guy, telling me, on the odd years, like, man, you beat the doors and you get people. And that was one of the main reasons I became involved with the Republican Party here in Crawford County. And one of the reasons I only filed as Republican. So there's, this weird quirk in a school board that you can cross-file. I'm a registered Republican, and I'll stand on that platform. And so I only filed as Republican. I would ask you, to vote for me. And I think when you look at the school district, things are going really well. I don't think anybody up here would do a bad job. I think you've got a great group of people that would be running and truly care about the community. But the only way a community progresses, the only way an organization progresses is that new influx of ideas, that new influx of energy. And I think I can bring that to the table. So I'll ask you to vote for me here in a week and hopefully again in the fall, all right?
I definitely am committed to the academic success of your children and your grandchildren. I believe in public education and that every student deserves a quality education with rigorous classes. I believe in educational technology. and opportunities definitely in art, music, band, drama, instrumentals, and sports. I believe in project-based learning and hands-on learning. I also believe in the VOTEC. I believe that students should have the opportunity to seek credits in high school college credits, while they're still in high school. I care about what's best for the students and for the educators and the community. I have a creative mind. I am dedicated. I work hard. I also think I have integrity on many situations that may come up that may need that particular quality. And again, I'm all about education and student success. In closing, I definitely would appreciate your vote on May 16th. I promise you, I will do a good job.
First of all, I'd like to thank our live audience for sitting with us this evening. It's very helpful to have faces to look out at. I would secondly say I'm all for kids, and I'd thirdly go out and vote.
Thank you, Chamber, for putting this on, and all of you for being here tonight, and anybody in the public that tunes into the stream here when it's broadcasted. I just want to give back to the community. There's no hidden agenda or anything. Like I said in the beginning, 20-some years ago, there were so many people that led me into a path that to work for this community. That's what I want to do. I have a passion for the school district. It's been my whole entire life. And I would appreciate that when you go out to vote next Tuesday, May 16th, that you flip my name on the ballot. I'll work hard. Two people pretty much taught me how to do that, my mother and a guy named Ed Meyer. For all of you that know, you show up a half hour before time is on time. I will work hard. I will be dedicated. I will not be afraid to put in the time that it takes to do the job the proper way. Thank you for being here tonight.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us here this evening.
And that was just one of the conversations that we have heard about tonight. That was the Titusville School District candidates for the Board of Education there last Tuesday. We're going to be taking a break in a few minutes, but before we get there, Fred, I wanted to start a conversation about the number of people running for school board, and I'd like to talk about it a little bit later. Not every district in the area has a plethora of people running for all of their seats. Cranberry Township, for one, is wanting for some candidates, if I read all the ballots correctly. But many, and the ones that we're really interested in tonight, Pencrest, Titusville, Crawford Central, there are many more people than there are seats, and I imagine some of it has to do with local budgeting. I imagine some of it has to do with the state budget crisis that happened a year or so ago, but I wonder if you have any insights on that.
Sometimes it's those issues. I know in Pencrest in particular, they've had some budget problems, and there's pressure on the number of buildings they have and things of that issue. Erie is going to be another one where there's a lot of controversy with some of the solutions that the board has come up with there. Titusville, I don't think that they face any of those particular types of fireworks because their board in past years and their business manager, Sean Sampson, do a pretty good job with the budget and are able to keep taxes pretty low, especially compared to other local districts. And they're able to work with both unions, I think, in making compromises to have more cost sharing, things like that. But I think in the case of Titusville, it was just there was a lot of people that wanted to give back to the community and be involved in the school district. Yeah, I don't think any of the candidates. I know one or two mentioned being fiscally conservative, but I think that was just a label. I don't think they have a particular agenda at least not from outside appearance. So.
Well, having covered the school board for, I guess, going on about 3 or 4 years now, I would say everybody on the board is pretty fiscally conservative.
Yeah. Nobody gets on there or comes to me and say, boy, we'd like to spend more money. But yeah, I mean, usually it's some kind of hot topic, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's just 7 people that would like to contribute back to the community or continue doing so in the case of Kevin, Dwight, and Lynn. But otherwise, yeah, I think it's just about being active, and I wish more schools would, or more school districts and more people would take an interest like that. And I would wish that controversy isn't what it takes to get people onto the ballot.
Yeah, that would be a good thing to wish for, although I don't think that's probably what happened over in Pencrest.
No.
There was a lot of issue with the finances there. But one of the good things that did come out of that, the superintendent there did meet a whole lot of people very, very many times, on all sorts of issues. There were extra budget sessions. There were, I think, was more transparency in the way things were put together. And I think, if anything, if that is a good thing, then so be it. But again, I think you're right. It was sort of a punch in the pocketbook that brought all of that about.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see how it shakes out in particular. And a lot of people shout, and a lot of people say, I can do a better job. But when you get on there, the problem is that, and this is true for boroughs and cities as well, but more so for school boards and for county commissioners, is they have a whole lot of mandated services they have to provide, but they're very limited in the revenue that they
We need to talk more about that, and the school board issue is not going to go away. We'll talk more after we come back from our break here in just a few moments. Thanks for being with us tonight on Stream Television and Armstrong with primary 2017 coverage.
2017 Renegade.
Upwards to $3,000.
2017 Pacifica.
That'd be upwards to $3,000.
2017 Cherokee.
That's up to $6,000.
What are you guys doing? We're just practicing for our Memory Day sales event.
It's not the Memory Day sale, it's the Memorial Day sale.
Oh.
They think they're TV stars. Memory Day sale.
It's a Memorial Day sales event here at Donovan Bauer, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, and Ram on the Highttown Road in Titusville.
Andrews Hilltop Hardware in Pleasantville is more than just your average hardware store. Sure, they carry the normal hardware store supplies, but it's the other items that makes them stand alone, like carrying sporting goods, dog tags, hunting and fishing licenses and supplies, plus a friendly and knowledgeable staff who can actually assist you with any home improvement project question you may have. Open Monday through Friday, 8 to 6, and Saturday and Sundays, 8 to 2. It's Andrews Hilltop Hardware, 123 East State Street in Pleasantville.
My name's Carolyn Hall, and I work at Byams Insurance. I am an insurance agent. In this ever-changing world, we're all connected. As an insurance agency, we worry about our clients and the information that they're providing to us, and we want to make sure that all of our software systems are safe and secure. And our specialty is not in that field. Our specialty is to help our clients find the right policy for them. Knowing that we have Hagen's watching over us 24/7 is very comforting to us, helps us sleep at night.
For affordable selection of flooring, choose Meadville Floors on the Conneaut Lake Road in Meadville. It's time to hitch up and hit the road to experience the great outdoors with your friends and family. Penn RV carries work and play, Wildwood, and Flagstaff recreational vehicles and pop-ups, RV supplies, and accessories. Ken and Margo have been in the RV business for almost 45 years, with Ken holding a master's certification as an RV technician. Summer hours are Monday and Thursday 9 to 7, Tuesday and Friday 9 to 5, and Wednesday and Saturdays 9 to 1. Like us on Facebook and stop in so you can hit the road and enjoy life with Penn RV Center on Route 8 south of Titusville.
Hospital partners, Meadville Medical Center and Titusville Area Hospital together provide a continuum of high-quality care across Crawford County. Both create the ultimate patient experience. Every patient, every time. Meadville Medical Center and Titusville Area Hospital are more than a hospital. We are a hospital partner, a community partner, a family partner, and a health partner.
Welcome back to Stream Television and Armstrong, our coverage of the 2017 primary here in Northwest Pennsylvania, primarily Crawford and Venango counties. We have Fred Smith with us tonight, and Fred is an instructor at Titusville Area School District. We are also joined by Bob Martin. Bob is the director, or I guess chair of the
gender neutral.
Of course, chair of the Venango County GOP. So we welcome you. It's good to have you on board. We're going to talk more about the school board issues a little bit later. But since you've joined us, you've brought some knowledge a little bit about the state judicial races. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say.
2 years ago, there wasn't a single Republican candidate for statewide judicial race who won, wiped out by the Democrats. And there's so many of these judges running. It's even for a lawyer who's ought to know, it's hard to keep track of all of them. and they would run without saying whether they're Democrat or Republican. You'd see these TV ads, you wouldn't know whether this person was running as a Republican or as a Democrat. And so this year the state GOP made a decision that they were going to run. They're going to encourage all of the judicial candidates to run as a slate, to run together. And the GOP has endorsed, and the Pennsylvania Bar Association has approved as qualified a number of candidates for the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. There's one vacancy, Sally Mundy of Tioga County. She's, I believe, on the Superior Court or the Commonwealth Court now, I forget which court. She was appointed to fill a vacancy, but well regarded, and so she's running for Supreme Court. For the Superior Court, the court system in Pennsylvania, you have county trial courts, the courts of common pleas, and then the appeals can go up either of two paths. One path is the Commonwealth Court. That's more for like things that involve schools or state agencies, things like that. And then you have the Superior Court, which is more where the civil cases go on appeal. And then from either of those courts, appeals go to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. So we have three layers like that. And so Sally's running for Supreme Court. For Superior Court, there's Emil Giordano. He's a judge in Northampton County. He came to our Lincoln dinner here last year. Craig Stedman, he's district attorney in Lancaster County. And Wade Cagarese, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I believe he's a judge in Blair County. And then Paula Patrick, a black woman from Philadelphia, real firecracker. I think she was elected as a Democrat, changed her party to Republican. But excellent, I heard her speak at the state committee meeting. Really, really an impressive person. And then for Commonwealth Court, Paul Lally, he's an attorney with a firm in Pittsburgh that does a lot of labor and employment law. He's running for Commonwealth Court, and Christine Fasano Cannon, who is a judge in Delaware County. And not politically correct to say, but she's beautiful.
Well, early in the program, Fred and I were talking about some of the very same things and why it's important for folks to pay attention to these judicial races. What's your experience with that?
I don't know that I've seen it on the Pennsylvania court, but we're seeing it a lot now. That we're seeing that is the role of a judge is to apply the law, not to make the law. Now, there's times when it can't be avoided. If the law's ambiguous, the court has to decide a case. It's got to decide it one way or the other. But we're seeing a lot of judges seem to be thinking now that it's okay to just disregard the law and do what they want. That's really a problem, because if the judicial branch basically becomes a super legislature, and you know, they're appointed for life, so that you don't get to vote them out of office. There are retention elections, but nobody ever gets voted out on retention unless a few years ago one of the Supreme Court justices got voted out because everybody was upset about the wage thing or something. The legislature had increased wages for state employees, including the judges. There was a big backlash. They went to reduce it, and the judges said, "Sorry, you can't reduce the judges," which is true, because they're supposed to be free of political influence. But he got payback on that one.
Wow. Well, they are important. One of the things that we also talked about was the possibility of a merit kind of a selection. We've heard a little bit about that. There was an AP article on that this morning. There's more and more support for that. Fred says it's something that would be very difficult to implement, if at all.
There are states, Utah, where I went to law school, they have appointed judges. The federal bench is appointed; they're not elected. And I agree. I mean, somebody could be running for judge that for all anybody knew hadn't even gone to law school, and so you do have the election. But on the other hand, it's political if they're appointed also, right? I mean, hopefully it's more of a merit-based thing. But I mean, look what just happened with Judge Garland. Didn't even get a hearing, and then all the stuff that went on with what's the guy that just got appointed?
Oh, Gorsuch.
Gorsuch. Eminently qualified, but it became political. So I think it's going to be political either way, and if that's the case, I suppose I come down on the side of elected judges, but not very strongly. I mean, I wish we could pick judges by an honest process based on merit, but I don't know how you free it from politics.
As an attorney, how important do you think it is that people running for higher level courts already have judicial experiences? They'd at least been a judge before.
It can't hurt, of course. But what an appellate judge does is quite a bit different from what a trial court judge does. Trial court judge is ruling on evidence, controlling the courtroom, witnesses, all that kind of thing. At the appellate level, it's more like law school. You're presented with questions. Each side briefs it extensively, typically, and then there's argument. And so it's really more a matter of analytical ability at the appellate level. At the trial court level, they're just trying to get things decided and off their docket. I'm sorry, at the trial level, if I didn't say that correctly. I mean, it's important to have competent judges at every level. Litigation is hugely expensive. And when you have judges making mistakes, that's costing people a lot of money. Even if the mistake gets corrected on appeal, that's just cost somebody $10,000, if it's an easy case. The little bit of an overstatement, but if it's a big case, it's huge dollars. And huge waste of time. It's just, you want qualified judges.
How do we bring all of these discussions, this is important stuff. The decisions that judges make, especially where they are applying law and deciding whether something is ambiguous or not, or how it applies, will eventually come down to take care of Joe's six-pack on the street. How do you get people to pay attention to these kinds of issues from time to time?
Well, as a lawyer, you don't get too vocal about people running for judge because you don't know if you're going to be appearing in front of them. I don't really have any idea how to educate the public on the importance of who they elect for judge. I mean, I don't know, and I don't know how the public would be competent really to decide who's qualified to be a good judge. In Venango County, the path lately has been you get elected as a district justice, and you don't even have to be an attorney to be a district justice, right. But you get to wear a robe, and so then when you run for judge, you're in your campaign photo with a robe on, and they can claim they have experience, And all experience is valuable, but well, I was, you know, I've played basketball longer than Michael Jordan, right? So I can claim that experience, but I'm not Michael Jordan.
That's a very good point. It really is. The experience is valuable, but
and I think experience as a practicing lawyer is important to understand the pressures that lawyers are under, to understand what lawyers are trying to do when they go to court. Sometimes you get judges who've only been like a prosecutor and they really haven't had experience in the civil domain. Some judges become contemptuous of lawyers, you know, and sometimes, you know, after a judge has been in a long time, they realize they can pretty well do what they want, and they start to become autocratic instead of following the law. When a complaint is filed, the defendant can challenge that complaint as failing to state a claim. Like if I sued you, you know, if I filed a complaint that said Mark showed up on TV wearing a brown corduroy sport coat, I want $1,000. You as the defendant could say that doesn't state a claim, and the judge could throw it out. Now, most cases aren't that obvious, but there are cases where the other side has not alleged facts that add up to a cause of action, and you can file a motion to dismiss, or you have a preliminary objection or a motion for judgment on the pleadings, and if the judge should throw the case out at that point. Problem is, if a trial judge throws a case out at that point, well, he's just decided the case on the law, not the facts, and when it goes on appeal, he can be reversed, because appellate courts, they look at the law. And so what some judges will do is they won't decide those cases when they could have gotten it thrown out and saved the defendant a ton of money, but they want it to go to trial so that they can decide the facts and then base their decision on the facts. Well, trial judges get a ton of deference when it comes to factual determinations because they're the ones that saw the witnesses, and they can pretty well determine the outcome by deciding what the facts were. It makes it much more difficult then to reverse that on appeal, and judges don't like, you know, they keep score. They don't like to get reversed on appeal. So I wish we had, and we have good judges in Venango County. I'm going to get myself in trouble saying this, but there tends to be a little bit of a leniency in following the rules. That is, there are rules of civil procedure that have a purpose. One of those purposes being to assure the efficient administration of justice. But, you know, an attorney doesn't answer discovery for a year. You know, they're supposed to answer in 30 days. You file a motion to compel, and the result of that is going to be the judge orders them to answer in another 30 days. You know, I mean, there ought to be sanctions immediately. Now, judges are going to hear that and say, okay, Martin, now we're going to start posing sanctions on you.
Well, you know, one of the things that strikes me is that the qualities that make a judge good at a county level, say, in the Court of Common Pleas, probably carries forward to the higher courts as well.
Again, they're different skill sets. You know, a trial judge got to be quick on his feet, you know, ruling on evidentiary motions and things like that. They are called upon to decide the law, but as I said, they tend to avoid that when they can. I had a case, this was involving a former judge in Venango County, where I and the attorney on the other side stipulated as to what the facts were. So there was no dispute as to what the facts were. The question was solely a legal question, and the judge declined to rule on it, and said it needed to go to trial. I guess with the attorneys agreeing on the facts. So
I guess my point is that you know, having over the years had an opportunity to interview at one point or another Judge White, Judge Lobaugh on more than one occasion, Judge Boyer as well. These are all men that have a tremendous amount of compassion for the people.
They're good men.
That come before them as well. And I guess, you know, what I was thinking, you know, when I was speaking to you just a moment ago was, you know, that probably gets brought forward. Maybe not so much at a higher level, but, you know, it's more evident at a local level.
But see, compassion can be injustice. Compassion for one side is a lack of compassion for the other. something that we would heard often in law school is hard cases make bad law. The widow who is suing on an invalid claim, the elderly widow suing on an invalid claim, you hate to rule against her, but if she's wrong, if she has an invalid claim, you need to rule against her. And compassion in that circumstance would be injustice to the other party. At the trial level, you're dealing with witnesses, you're dealing with parties. At the appellate level, it's more abstract questions of law. The judges at the appellate level, they never see the parties. All they see are briefs. They see the transcript of the trial, and they see the attorneys at argument. And I think that's deliberate. It's deliberate that they are somewhat separated from circumstances that might elicit compassion or sympathy, so that they can, decide on the law rather than. I'm not a judge, but sometimes we serve as arbitrators in cases, and we had a case where a woman got bit by a dog. Did damage to her hand. She lost use of her hand. In Pennsylvania, you're not liable for your dog biting somebody unless the dog has a known dangerous propensity. And this dog hadn't bit somebody before. And so we had to rule against this woman who clearly had suffered injury because of this dog bite. Now, as between the innocent person whose hand was bit and the innocent person who owned the dog that bit her, who should be responsible? Well, Pennsylvania law says, too bad for you that got bit. And so, we all were sympathetic to the woman whose hand was bit, but we ruled against her. And then I wrote a letter to my state senator saying we need to change that law. Yeah. But you follow the law. You're not the legislature.
I'm going to change gears for just a little bit. Something still on the legal side of things, but the law in Pennsylvania allows for, or rather, I guess, demands a closed primary. And I want to talk a little bit about the differences between a closed and an open primary, and why it's what's good about either system. One of the things that we mentioned in opening the programming today is that folks who aren't registered Democrats or Republicans, the only say they get is if they want to do a write-in or answer a question that's on a ballot. Fred, I'll start with you. Advantages, disadvantages to a closed primary system in Pennsylvania?
Probably the biggest disadvantage is that not only are your choices then partisan, but they're going to be even more partisan than they need to be. Maybe not so much in a local election, but usually the most liberal and the most conservative turn out to vote. And that pushes oftentimes candidates, I think, toward the left and to the right. So that's probably the biggest disadvantage. And we see states with open primaries, you do get independents to vote, so you see candidates try to appeal more toward, not necessarily toward the center, but they're not going to be as far out on the edges as they could be. But the advantage is that, if you belong to a party, hopefully you belong to it because you believe in at least a majority of its platform, its philosophy, and therefore you want to help pick the people that represent the party and hold offices in government that try to guide the government toward the philosophy that you believe in. And if you allow all kinds of other people to vote in that, it kind of skews those beliefs that party has. And I don't think this has as much of an impact, but occasionally you do even have people encourage non-party members to vote in an election to try to throw some people out of the nomination process. And so I don't know if sabotage is the biggest reason, but certainly if you're a Republican, why should you let independents, or maybe even some states where it's completely open, Democrats help influence who you want, and same with the Democratic Party?
I've had, I grew up in New Jersey. That's where I voted for, the first time and for many years.
And quite often in the same election.
Yes, kind of like Chicago, early and often. But a closed primary system there too. So it's not just Pennsylvania, it's many states. Your thoughts on that, please?
I agree with what Fred said. I suppose on balance I come down on the side of a closed primary, specifically because of the possibility, and it has happened, where you get people switching over to prevent the candidate they don't want getting the nomination from getting the nomination, so that they can then in the general election vote for their Democrat, or roles reversed, but the George Washington and John Adams, I believe, I mean, they hated the idea of party politics. But it's what we have. I think it's human nature that we ended up here. And I think they should be closed primaries. I mean, this is where the party picks its candidates. So why would you have people who are not members of the party picking the party's candidates? Now, even though it's a closed primary, even though this is our primary, the Republican committee is not allowed to poll watch in the primary, which blows my mind. It's our primary.
That's really a little strange.
And same for the Democrats. You know, the parties, it's the party's primaries, but the parties are not allowed to poll watch in Pennsylvania. I can poll watch in the general election. I can't poll watch in the primary, and it's our primary.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah.
It seems like I learned something new in the election.
That came up last year. Everybody had been poll watching before that, but somebody in Harrisburg read the election law and realized it doesn't say that. So they sent out a letter, and all the counties said, "Sorry, you can't." They hate poll watchers. And they think we're troublemakers, so they keep us out.
Well, I guess the thing that really hit home is when we talked a little bit about this morning. There's a whole group of voters who are not participating in
It's their choice.
In the process.
It's their choice.
Well, yeah, it is. They do choose to.
Independent is actually a party. What most of them, when they register as independent, I think what they mean to be doing is registered as non-aligned. But independent party is actually a party. There's an attitude, I think, among a lot of people, a pox on both their houses. They hate the Democrats, they hate the Republicans. But if you want to have a voice in the primary, you've got to be one or the other. Make a decision. And I think people think that by being an independent, they're somehow above it all. And I'm sorry, you can't be above it all.
One of the observations that I'll make, I had to chuckle a little bit on the Valley Grove School Board, Vance Mays.
The Libertarian.
Yeah, the Libertarian is registered as a Republican on the school board.
Well, you can do that. You can run in the primary of both parties, and that happens often in Venango County. So, like, if you're running for district attorney, if you're a Republican running for district attorney, you still run on both ballots in the primary. And if you win in the Democrat primary and you've won in the Republican primary, election's over. And that has happened a number of times in Venango County.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders, is not a Democrat, but he ran for the Democratic Party nomination. Yeah.
Wow, there's a lot of. It's, I guess, a kind of a strategy too.
I'm getting a note here telling me to shut up. Thank you.
Well, at any rate, I think we've kind of exhausted the subject, but I wanted to come back to the school board issue, and it'll be interesting, Bob, to get your feelings about all of that. We were talking about a half an hour ago about the importance of the number of people that are participating in the school board's elections, and I think, Fred, you mentioned that there's a lot of reasons folks do that. In one instance in Titusville, you mentioned there's just a lot of folks who feel maybe they need to give back to the community. In other places, people got hit in the wallet, and when dollar signs come up, people get involved.
Or closing of buildings.
Well, this is true also. Yeah, absolutely. We saw that. We have seen that a lot in the Venango County area. There have been school buildings closed in the Cooperstown area, Cherry Tree, and what have you, and others. Oakland, those schools certainly brought out the community. I'd be interested to hear, Bob, if you have any thoughts about the numbers of people that are running for school board. Not necessarily who, but how many.
I don't. It's because there are so many members of a school board. I think people think they've got a reasonable shot at getting elected when they run. So I think that's one reason why you get many. I agree with what's already been said. I mean, in terms of taxes and control over the, I mean, we pay a lot of money in school taxes. In terms of what taxes we have control over, those are the taxes that are nearest to home. And I agree with what Fred said. We don't have as much control over those as we think we have because of all the mandates. So the money is an issue. It's near to home. They experience it in their property taxes. They get that bill. You pay your, all this money to the federal government, but you have no idea how much is going to what or what. But when you pay your school tax, you know that's going to the schools. That's in fact one of the reasons that there's been opposition to the state funding education, because you lose control locally. You no longer know how much of your money is going to the schools. So I like the accountability of having a local school tax. Another reason is just education. Schools are where the culture wars get fought, and so you've got family conservatives wanting to make sure that kids aren't being taught to LGBT stuff, and then you have people on the other side of that issue wanting to make sure it happens. That's it's really a hotbed of where the culture, not so much in high school as in college, but still in the heck, I mean, I don't know if it's happening around here, but I guess elementary school curriculums are starting to talk about LGBT stuff, so parents get pretty excited about that. So I imagine you get people running for that reason as well.
There's I guess a number of issues that would engage people in those kinds of things. It strikes me, one of the things that you have both mentioned have been unfunded mandates, and I wonder if one of you would talk about that for a moment.
I think all levels of local government face that, because a lot of the direction of what local government can do comes out of the state general assembly. And as for local school districts, that's a problem. You want money, you take it, especially at the federal level, and then you're kind of forced into a lot of things that maybe you don't necessarily want to do. And the problem is as that money dwindles, you're still locked into those mandates, and that's kind of a problem. And and that's a big problem for rural areas in particular, because there's not enough tax base to make up the difference if you choose not to take that money. Like a lot of school districts locally, maybe only 40 or 50% of their budget comes from local tax dollars. So then they end up having to rely on state and federal money, and that's what makes a lot of school districts, like he had said, leery about taking even more, because then you'd be completely trapped in particular. And but one thing I mentioned earlier is a lot of people, they know where their local tax dollars are going, but they don't necessarily realize what percentage it is and where the other money is coming from in particular. Like a lot of people probably think that the school districts have to provide school busing, but they don't. I mean, that's because of great money they have to do that, or even school lunch and breakfast programs. And so I think that what throws a lot of people for a loop when they first get onto the school board is seeing what they have to do and don't have to do. And I think it can be frustrating because you realize there are limitations about what can take place. One thing a lot of people don't realize is relating it to the national landscape with that healthcare law that their House of Representatives passed as a cutback on Medicaid. And a lot of people don't realize is a chunk of every school district special education program comes through Medicaid. But it's lost in the news, and a lot of people don't see that.
We're going to talk more about all of this on the other side of our break here. We also have some clips from school board officials and others on this topic, so we'll take a listen to that in just a few minutes. This is coverage of the 2017 Pennsylvania primary, especially here in northwest Pennsylvania, specifically Venango and Crawford counties. And we will be back in just a couple of moments. Thanks for being with us here on Stream Television and Armstrong.
Welcome to Corvetteville at Community Chevrolet. Stop into Corvetteville today and check out the area's largest selection of Corvettes, from the Stingray, the Grand Sport, or the Z06 in coupes and convertible. Take advantage of available incentives and drive the car that makes extraordinary simple. The time to deal is now. Find new roads at Community Chevrolet and pick out the vet of your dreams in Corvetteville. Used Corvettes are also available. Community Chevrolet on the Conneaut Lake Road, just west of I-79 in Meadville.
Anyone with a kind and generous heart and a little money can be a philanthropist. You too can be a force for good in our community, and the Crawford Heritage Community Foundation is here to help you make the most of your charitable giving. We've partnered with hundreds of people like you to make our world and our community a better place. You can give through us to support scholarships or any charitable organization or purpose. Whether you're interested in establishing a permanent endowment or adding to an existing fund, we want to be a part of your plan. Contact us when you're ready to make your mark. Together, we can make your contribution go further.
No one plans on breaking down or getting stuck, but you can plan on Shambaugh Towing to be there to help you out. Since 2010, Shambaugh has been serving Northwest PA with quality roadside assistance services and auto and truck repairs. No job is too small or too big for Shambaugh. So for heavy towing, emergency roadside service, flatbed services, jump start, lockouts, tire changes, and more, there's only one place to call when your life's in shambles. Call Shambaugh 814-827-1431 or visit them online at shambaghtowing.com.
Hello, and welcome to the Lee McFerrin Agency. We are an independent insurance company in downtown Meadville. Insurance doesn't have to be complicated, so we make it easy. Our insurance rater provides multiple quotes for your auto and homeowners insurance. You need life insurance and business insurance? We can help with those too. Yes, we do understand you have a lot of insurance options, but the Lee McFerrin Agency will be there when you need us most. Give us a chance to give you a quote. Call today, 814-209-7375.
Anderson Physical Therapy is committed to your long-term health and well-being. With certified, licensed therapists, Andersons can provide therapy for all your rehabilitation needs. With our new location in Titusville at 202 Union Street and our new offices at 118 Main Street, Tityute, Anderson makes it convenient for you to get back to doing the things you enjoy. So stay on top of your game with Anderson Physical Therapy, now in 7 locations and online 24/7 at andersonphysicaltherapy.net.
If you are turning 65 and you're not receiving Social Security benefits or railroad retirement benefits, then you will need to take action to get signed up for Medicare. On the internet, go to socialsecurity.gov and create an account online. From there, you'll be able to sign up for your Medicare Part A and Part B benefits. You can call or you can visit your local Social Security office.
Once you get signed up for Medicare, give us a call and we can explain your Medicare insurance options to you. As always, there's no cost to meet with us. We're here to help you.
Good evening. Welcome back to our coverage of the Pennsylvania primary in Crawford and Venango counties. Primary coverage 2017 on Armstrong and Stream Television. We're joined tonight again. We've added to the number of folks here at the table. Alex, you have to help me with your last name. I'm Matsu. Thank you. You asked me if I'd mess up. I think I did. So, Alex Matsu, the former head of the former chair of the Democratic Party in Venango County. Bob Martin, the present chair of the Republican Party in Venango County. We also have Fred Smith with us tonight, instructor at Titusville Area School District. We've been talking about a number of things tonight. We want to go over at the moment just some of the nuts and bolts of why we're here. We'd like to want to review some of the candidates that we'll be keeping track of. We've been doing a lot of talking over the last hour and a half or so, mainly because the polls are still open. They will close at 8 o'clock, and then we will probably shift gears a little bit and start talking about the returns and some other related issues as well. But at the county level in Crawford, Republican voters are seeing the name of incumbent Christine Krzyzak of Venango County on the ballot for the 4-year term of treasurer. The candidate for the 4-year term of Crawford County Clerk of Courts is incumbent Patricia A. Weatherby. There are no Democratic candidates. In Venango County, Republican voters will see the name of incumbent District Attorney Sean White of Franklin seeking approval for a second run at, or a run of a second term. Incumbent Sheriff Eric Foy of Cherry Tree Township is on the Republican ballot, as are incumbents for the Register of Wills, Recorder of Deeds, and Clerk of Orphans Court Sue Hannon, and for Coroner Christina Amrou, however, faces some competition on the Republican ballot for her position from Jessica Ewing Falco. There are no Democratic candidates for the Venango County positions. Many school boards in Crawford and Venango counties are overflowing with candidates for dozens of open seats and seats held by incumbents. In the Pencrest district, which includes 17 Crawford County communities and 1 Venango County township, 12 candidates are contesting 6 seats. 4 incumbents seats are on the line: Jerry B. Dean, Mark Jarrow, Timothy Brown, and Stacy Porter. All but 1 candidate is cross-filed, and that is Jeffrey Brooks. In the Titusville Area School District, with sending communities in Crawford, Warren, and Venango counties, 7 candidates are vying for 5 seats. The incumbents include Kevin O'Neill, Dwight Proper, and Lynn Cressman. All the candidates are cross-filed, but Proper, who is running as a Republican in the Crawford Central District, 6 candidates running for 4 seats. 2 are cross-filed: Jeanette A. Filippa and Donald Sacco, both incumbents. Ross C. Prather and Paula Jo Lynch filed as Republicans, and Eric Warner and incumbent Melissa Burnett are filed as Democrats. In Venango County, the Franklin School District features 4 cross-filed incumbents seeking a position on November's general election ballot, and 4 cross-filed challengers. I believe that's actually 3 incumbents and 5 challengers. Incumbents include John Phillips, Brian Spade, David Graham, and Randy Seitz, whose name is not on the primary ballot. Newcomers are Major Smith, Jamie Hazes, Veronica Santee, Tracy Lyda, and Ron Richburg. The Oil City Area School District features 5 incumbents up for re-election: Mark Kerr, Joe McFadden, Nick Skakowski, Fred Weaver, and Karen Woods, whose name is not on the ballot. Challengers include Robert Hicks, Chris Hibbard, Jonathan J. Piercy, Diana S. Davis, and Jeff Henry in the Valley Grove District. We'll continue a little bit more with this in just a few moments, but right now I'm being told we have Jack Lynch on the phone with us. Jack is in Meadville. Hello, Jack, and what do you have?
Hey, Mark, I just want to check in before the polls close. We're looking at, T-minus 25 minutes here till the polls close. A couple of just updates. I heard you going over the school district races. You did cover the Crawford Central, I would assume, and Pencrest as well?
Yes.
Okay. Did find out some information. I'm kind of hosted here by the Republican headquarters. The Democratic headquarters will not be open, but in one of the contested races here, which is essentially 3 Democrats, we can talk about that, but I did reach out to the candidates. We will get a word from everybody who is on the ballot later tonight after the polls close. And what we'll be doing as well is getting some feedback from people that help shape some of these elections if we can. Like I say, it's a very low turnout. We hear from the Meadville Tribune, just visiting various poll places. They're talking around, at least in these precincts, around 10%, which is fairly abysmal given the day. What we'll do is we'll do the best we can. We'll certainly have the courthouse live. Usually candidates do pop their head in the door there. That's where the results, of course, come in from Election Central. Those doors open at 8:30, and we will be there. So what we'll do is we'll try our best to get, not just the man on the ground, but get the candidates themselves to speak, win, lose, or draw, like we indicated earlier. And hopefully, in terms of the contested races, local races, we discussed that briefly. The school districts, critically important. In this area here is the mayoral race, and if we can get with the Republican challengers, we will do that as well. We'll try to interview as many people as we can to provide some context for what's happening around here, and also from the polls as they come in. It's always interesting to see the turnout in various areas as the numbers roll in themselves.
It'll be interesting to hear from the candidates, especially if there were any issues in particular that kind of came up in their candidacy as well. Maybe that can be brought up as well.
Right. Yeah, critically important issues locally, as we indicated before. It has a lot to say with not just your wallet, but in terms of some of the things that shape the local economy. Your political actors can have a great deal of influence in terms of pursuing, for example, grants or projects that are a value add to your community, not just through the redevelopment authorities, but also by direct leadership. There's no doubt that matters in terms of a little proactive stance and really trying to put a stamp on the community for the better. And whether it's parking meters or whatever your flavor is, or fluoridated water, these are all things that folks in these municipalities care deeply about. So we'll do our best to get in touch with folks, and we'll call you back probably around the 8:30 hour, and see what we can come up with here in terms of some context and numbers.
Okay, Jack, that sounds good. We'll talk with you in just a little while then. Thank you so much.
You bet. Take care.
Okay, well, we have the course of our evening cut out for us. We'll be hearing from candidates here probably within the hour and getting their take on what they have heard as they have campaigned as well. We're talking about the school board issues just before we went to break, and I believe we have some video of some folks from different school boards talking about some of the same issues as well. Perhaps we could see that and go from there.
The enrollment has gone down, but in the meantime, they did hire new teachers. And to me, that was wrong, and that's why I felt terrible about the furloughs, because to me, they make any sense hire new people when the enrollment of students was going down. And it's a shame because we actually took individuals who did have jobs, and we promised them that they were going to have a permanent job, and all of a sudden now they have no jobs. Now, as far as the tax increase, I voted no for the tax increase because my main concern is not only the private owner of a home, but the business. Business are the lifeline of the people in this county. Without business, there will be no homes, there will be no families, everybody's going to move out because we need jobs. And that's why I think as long as we increase taxes, we're going to push away business in our area. We cannot afford to do that.
My mom has been taking me to meetings since I was 10 years old, and this is the most interesting meeting I've been at this point in time. I have no idea what's going on. There's been some interesting votes going on, and what's happened so far as they break and go to executive sessions cannot be the final result. So it's going to be interesting to see what's coming out. In general, you come to these meetings and you think you know what's on the agenda and what's going to happen, and there's apparently something new to be put on the agenda and something new happening that we weren't expecting.
Two folks that we talked with last year about this time at the Pencrest School Board meeting as they were hashing out issues with their budget last year for the present school year. Luigi DiFrancesco first speaking about some basic concerns. The gentleman we just saw, Mr. Brooks, is on the ballot today running as a Republican candidate for one of the seats on the Crawford or on the Pencrest School Board. And as long as we were, talking school board and budget issues as well, we had a recent conversation just this week with Sean Sampson, who is the business manager at Titusville area school district, speaking about the state of the budget in Titusville, which happens to or seems to be a little more manageable than many others, maybe a little bit more well managed. That seems to be the case. At any rate, it appears to be very well under control. But we did talk with Sean, and the state of the budget at this point in the Titusville district.
Well, essentially, as you saw there, we were about $213,000 on a proposed tax increase, which is below, about $100,000 below where the state would allow us to be. The board wants us to continue to work to try to bring that down. However, we have some work to do just to get it down to that 213 because we're taking additional money out of the fund balance. So essentially what the board's doing next week is passing a proposed final budget. We'll advertise it, make it available for public inspection. We'll work with Finance Committee, administration, come back in June, present it to the board, as if there's any suggestions, questions, get it down to a number that the board can live with and also provides for the educational expenses for the students, and try to find that balance and get it approved in June.
And that's Sean Sampson. We spoke with Sean as the budget was preliminarily approved in the Titusville Area School District. Another issue in education that has come before us, and by us I mean us here at the morning drill program, we have had Representative Kathy Rapp from Warren and Eastern Crawford County on talking about a proposal perhaps to consider the consolidation of schools. It's not a new idea, but it is being floated again in this area, and we'll hear from her.
I'll be honest, I would like to see more consolidation of school districts by county in this state, because I do think that that is one thing that saves taxpayer dollars. If because you're looking at one administration, is it all perfect? No, but we are in such a decline of population. When I graduated from Warren Area High School, my class had around 500 students. Now there's around 400 students for the entire county. And I think it's the same in Crawford County, from what I hear, that we're all in a population decline, our schools are in population decline, and I do feel that's one way school districts across Pennsylvania, and it's not just the Northwest, it's everywhere, that we should be looking at some type of consolidation, at least consolidating at administrative level.
And there we have it. There's a number of issues there. I want to go around the table. We'll get some opinion on that. Fred, I'll start with you. Consolidation, again, not a new idea. I have talked with folks in the past about that. For instance, Dr. Joe Carrico, who is the immediate past superintendent at Oil City School District, and now I believe executive director at Pathways in Oil City. But Dr. Carrico had a very pronounced opinion on that, and it probably was not a good idea. I wonder, how you feel about that.
Well, it's difficult. I don't know about doing it at the county level. That would be hard to do. Titusville, for instance, has about half of the students from the school district, and we're right on the county border. What are you going to do? Ship? If you had closed buildings, would you ship all those people? I mean, it would be kind of ridiculous in some situations where the population center isn't where you think it is. I think if consolidation would happen, it'd be more efficient and probably more likely from a political standpoint if it occurred just between districts. Like where I grew up, my home school district had 115 when I graduated, and now it's already down to 75. They could probably combine with the two neighboring districts, which would be better. And from an educational standpoint, when you only have 100 or less students, you really don't have a big enough student body to have a wide variety of elective courses or AP courses or sports that can keep a lot of kids basically in a good environment and have things like team building skills and stuff like that. In Titusville we have a lot of sports, and I know a lot of people complain, it's a waste and that's not what school's all about, but it attracts a lot of different kids. We not only have sports where you have to have a lot of skill, like with soccer, but you also have cross country where if you just need to be able to run, so it attracts a lot of different kids. But when you have a lower student body, you can't have all that programming, both academically and extracurricularly. And so it would be nice to see an average rate of about 200 or so. I think getting them up higher than that gets a little too big to manage, and kids get lost kind of as numbers more than anything else. But I think that there are limitations when you drop down below that. Plus, not only that, but it's a huge financial burden, not just administratively, but it costs a lot of money to keep buildings open.
Well, it's logistics as well.
Absolutely. But that's where it's going to run into the biggest problem. And if Kathy Rapp wants to push this, good luck to her, because it will be her last term. Because people, the one thing they care about the most, and it's funny because in a rural area, people are more likely to be conservative, people are more likely to be anti-tax, but they hate the idea of closing their local school building, which is the exact opposite of the other positions they have. And people get upset even when you just close one elementary, let alone multiple high schools like they want to do in Erie, and that becomes a huge problem. In the school district from Indiana County where I'm from, actually the school district is mostly in Armstrong, and they had a couple of municipalities in Indiana County. They closed the high school. Then there was a new election on the school board. They approved reopening it, and they let the kids come back on a voluntary basis, and not even all of them wanted to come back. There's another local school district that has 2 high schools, and the one is much smaller, and it's much bigger financial burden on the district. And when they talked about closing that, there was outraged, and I remember reading in the paper down there, this will destroy our town, as if that's the only thing that keeps this town alive. But people feel very passionately about it, so it's kind of a difficult situation. And plus, the other part of that is, if you do end up closing, then people want to end up keeping their school, and the only way they see to do that is to open charter schools in particular, and those have their pros and cons as well. So
I want to come around and talk a little bit about that, because we've seen that here in this area as well. Alex, I'm kind of curious as to what you think. You've been active in the effort to keep Venango Catholic open, so you've had some insight into that kind of thing. But wonder if you have an opinion on this issue.
It is a double-edged sword, but with the case of Venango Catholic, I mean, you don't have a lot of Catholic schools around this area. And it does show what a community wants. Like you said, Fred, whenever the bishop said, I wanted to close VC, there was you even saw, Bob, there was an astounding amount of support from the community. And with you saying about in like 200, 300 per class, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get a better education. Venango Catholic, whenever I graduated, it was 32 students graduated my class. But each teacher was able to spend the time that they needed with each student. If somebody was not as far on in math as another student, that teacher could take a few minutes or a half an hour, because we block scheduling, 65-minute classes. Okay, hey, Bill, let's do this. What if you try and do this way? They had different ways of helping you out with the smaller class. And last time I saw, the percentage was about 90% of VC's graduate rate go on to college educations and serve in the military. And that is a big thing. But in with it, you close schools or combine schools in a district. Look at Forest County. You have East Forest on one side, West Forest on another. Where do they go? Do they start filtering into North Clarion? Or do they all go to West Forest, or do they all go to East Forest? How do you determine that? And then it can be monetarily done or a burden because of gas, if you're going from East Forest to bring them all the way to West Forest.
Well, I have seen, Fred, you talked about the resistance to change and what have you, and, the fierce loyalty to schools. When there was discussion about shutting down, I think it was Hickory Elementary in Tionesta or in the area there some time ago, people became very fired up, even though the building was just physically unfit to house students in anymore.
Probably East Hickory?
Yeah, East Hickory, thank you. There was quite a backlash to that, and eventually, there is...
At least what I heard from my grandmother. I wasn't there at that time.
I remember being out there to cover it, and there were a lot of fireworks. Bob, and I think that's probably a danger. Sometimes these things create more heat than light.
On a lot of these issues, people only look at one side of the issue. Sure, it'd be great to have 32 kids in a class, and the teacher be able to spend that much time with each student, and if you can, if you ask people, are you for smaller class sizes or larger class sizes? Everyone will say they're for smaller class sizes. Are you for paying another $1,000 in property taxes to have smaller classes? I like the larger classes. And so we'll see how long Venango Christian stays open. I mean, yeah, there was an immediate reaction.
Well, they're open through next year at least.
But as those people that were all excited about keeping Venango Christian open begin to confront the cost, we may see some of that enthusiasm wane. I don't know that. I'm just speculating. In Venango County, I'm from Franklin. There's the Rocky Grove School District with their high school, which is 4 miles from the Franklin High School. Obvious candidates for merger. My vice chair is chair of the Rocky Grove School Board, and boy, if she were here right now, my head would be rolling, because Rocky Grove, first off, their whole communities, their whole sense of community is around that school. That's their identity, even though they're part of the city of Franklin, which is not like a huge metropolis. But Rocky Grove perceives itself as having been managed more responsibly fiscally, and are afraid that if they were to be taken over by Franklin, they would lose that. And I think there may be some merit to their argument. I don't think, I agree with Kathy, I think this needs to be a state initiative, because I don't think you're going to overcome these local prejudices. It's got to be coerced.
Yeah.
Well, that, I think, as it was explained to me by Dr. Carrico some time ago, logistics alone, just on the physical plants and transportation and programming, is just overwhelming. It would have to be very carefully weighed, by all involved.
And there's no guarantee it will necessarily reduce the amount of administration, because if you have, instead of 2,000 kids to watch over, you have 20,000. Yeah, you only have one superintendent, but then you'll have 15 directors of different departments. So, usually food and cafeteria services and a few other things are combined under one director, but you're going to need a director for each of those, and it's not necessarily going to reduce the amount of bureaucracy. I mean, I think it will, but you'll still have quite a bit of administrative services, and plus, like you had said, local control. If it's at the county level, people are going to be more distance from administration if it's over the entire county, so that can be a problem. But speaking of districts being more compact and like with Rocky Grove, I mean, there are some districts. My home school district wasn't even contiguous, and there's one in the south central part of the state that's 4 or 5 municipalities, and none of them border each other, and that itself is inefficient and a cost burden, especially with busing and things like that.
Hang on to that. We'll be back in just a few minutes. We'll take a break here. Thanks, everyone, for being with us tonight on Primary Coverage 2017 of the Pennsylvania primary. This is primary day. The polls will be closing here in just a few minutes, and hopefully we'll start to see some returns here in the next little while. We'll see we'll actually hear from Jack Lynch in Meadville. We'll talk with some candidates, and we hope you'll rejoin us here in just a couple of minutes. This is Armstrong and Stream Television bringing you 2017 primary coverage of the Pennsylvania primary in Venango and Crawford counties.
...2017 Renegade.
Upwards to $3,000.
2017 Pacifica.
That'd be upwards to $3,000.
2017 Cherokee.
That's up to $6,000.
What are you guys doing?
We're just practicing for our Memory Day sales event.
It's not the Memory Day sale, it's the Memorial Day sale.
Oh.
They think they're TV stars. Memory Day sale.
It's a Memorial Day sales event here at Donovan Bauer, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, and Ram on the Highttown Road in Titusville.
Andrews Hilltop Hardware in Pleasantville is more than just your average hardware store. Sure, they carry the normal hardware store supplies, but it's the other items that makes them stand alone, like carrying sporting goods, dog tags, hunting and fishing licenses and supplies, plus a friendly and knowledgeable staff who can actually assist you with any home improvement project question you may have. Open Monday through Friday, 8 to 6, and Saturday and Sundays, 8 to 2. It's Andrews Hilltop Hardware, 123 East State Street in Pleasantville.
My name's Carolyn Hall, and I work at Byams Insurance. I am an insurance agent. In this ever-changing world, we're all connected. As an insurance agency, we worry about our clients and the information that they're providing to us, and we want to make sure that all of our software systems are safe and secure. And our specialty is not in that field. Our specialty is to help our clients find the right policy for them. Knowing that we have Hagen's watching over us 24/7 is very comforting to us, helps us sleep at night.
It's time to hitch up and hit the road to experience the great outdoors with your friends and family. Penn RV carries work and play, Wildwood, and Flagstaff recreational vehicles and pop-ups, RV supplies and accessories. Ken and Margo have been in the RV business for almost 45 years, with Ken holding a master's certification as an RV technician. Summer hours are Monday and Thursday 9 to 7, Tuesday and Friday 9 to 5, and Wednesday and Saturdays 9 to 1. Like us on Facebook and stop in so you can hit the road and enjoy life with Penn RV Center on Route 8 south of Titusville.
Hospital partners, Meadville Medical Center and Titusville Area Hospital together provide a continuum of high-quality care across Crawford County. Both create the ultimate patient experience. Every patient, every time. Meadville Medical Center and Titusville Area Hospital are more than a hospital. We are a hospital partner, a community partner, a family partner, and a health partner.
Hi, I'm Janice, and I'm here to answer all your questions about EXP. Absolutely not. It's not complicated at all. It is much simpler than the old remote. Everything is compact, and it doesn't have near as many buttons. It tells you exactly what it's going to do. The green button right there, that's on demand. It's very clearly marked what each button is for. You don't have to figure it out.
Good evening and welcome back to our coverage of the Pennsylvania 2017 primary for Venango and Crawford counties. We've been talking with Alex Motzer, Bob Martin, and Fred Smith about a number of topics. We were just wrapping up some conversation about school district consolidation, and I think we're going to head off in a slightly different direction, but just to close things out, just a reminder that the polls are closing as we speak. We should be hearing from Jack Lynch over in Meadville and some candidates here within the half hour or so. In many school boards in Crawford and Venango counties, there are candidates, more candidates for seats than there are seats in many cases. In the Penncrest district, which includes 17 Crawford County communities and one Venango County township, 12 candidates are contesting 6 seats. 4 incumbents seats are on the line: Jerry B. Dean, Mark Jarrow, Timothy Brown, and Stacy Porter. All but one candidate is cross-filed, and that is Jeffrey Brooks. In the Titusville Area School District, with sending communities in Crawford, Warren, and Venango counties, 7 candidates are vying for 5 seats. The incumbents include Kevin O'Neill, Dwight Proper, and Lynn Cressman. All the candidates are cross-filed, but Proper is running as a Republican. In the Crawford Central District, 6 candidates are running for 4 seats. 2 are cross-filed: Jeanette A. Filippa and Donald Sacco, both incumbents. Ross C. Prather and Paula Jo Lynch are filed as Republicans, and Eric Warner and incumbent Melissa Burnett are filed as Democrats. In Venango County, the Franklin School District features, I believe, there are 4 incumbents right now. 3 of them are seeking position on November's general election ballot, and 5 cross-filed challengers. Incumbents include John Phillips, Brian Spade, David Graham, and Randy Seitz, who is not on the ballot this time around. The newcomers are Major Smith, Jamie E. Heises, and Veronica Santee. Tracy Lida and Ron Richburg. The Oil City Area School District features 5 incumbents up for re-election: Mark Kerr, Joe McFadden, Nick Skakowski, Fred Weaver, and Karen Woods, who is not on the ballot this time. Challengers include Robert Hicks, Chris Hibbard, Jonathan J. Piercy, Diana S. Davis, and Jeff Henry. In the Valley Grove School District, 6 candidates are seeking to fill 5 seats on the school board. Incumbents Todd Carson, Melanie K. Anderson are cross-filed, as is newcomer Paul Barger. Incumbents Nicole M. McGill and Vance H. Mays are filed as Republican candidates. Joan Beach is filed as a Republican candidate. The school board elections come at a tension-filled time for those dealing with public education. Governor Tom Wolf pledges more money for early childhood special and basic education. There is a controversial cut proposed in transportation funding, more money for higher education, and stronger performance indicators for schools. There are concerns about the abolition of property taxes, a shortage of substitute teachers, and other challenges. And while many local and municipal primary election races show empty spaces on the ballots, there are some worth keeping an eye on. In Crawford County, registered Democrat voters will choose between two candidates for mayor of Meadville in the fall election, incumbent Mayor H. Leroy Stearns and incumbent Councilman Sean P. Donahue in Conneaut Lake Borough. Registered Republican voters will choose between Mario Louis de Blasio and John O'Grady for mayoral candidate in November. GOP voters in Randolph, Rome, Venango, and Vernon townships will choose supervisor candidates for the fall election. Democrat voters in Hydetown Borough will choose candidates for the Borough Council. Republican voters in Linesville Borough, Rome, Sadsbury, and South Shenango townships will choose tax collector candidates, while Democrats in South Shenango Township will also choose tax collector candidates. In Oil Creek Township, Republican voters will choose for an auditor candidate. Republican incumbent candidates for the various positions exist in Hydetown, Linesville, Meadville, Oil Creek Township, Randolph Township, South Shenango Township, and Venango Township. In Venango County's Oil City, there are 2 city council seats with incumbents up for re-election. Republican voters will see the name of Isaiah Dunham on Republican ballots, and Democratic voters will see the name of Michael Poff Jr. Oil City Republican voters will also see the name of Michael A. Harvey for city controller. The name of incumbent Republican city controller Bob Cross does not appear. Republican Joe Womer Sr., incumbent city treasurer, is also on the ballot. The city of Franklin there is a Republican contest for mayor between incumbent Doug Baker and incumbent Councilman Ryan Rudiger. 3 at-large council seats are open with 2 Republican incumbents on the ballot, Sam Lyons and Donna Fletcher. The 3rd Republican candidate is Michael C. Delaney. James Johnson is the only incumbent Democrat at-large councilman on the ballot. In Franklin's District 3, Republican voters will see Republican Fred Mays is on the ballot, and Democrats will see Jane DeLugo's name. And that's sort of a quick wrap-up of the local elections here in Crawford and Venango County. We have been talking with Alex Motzer, Bob Martin, and Fred Smith about school issues. We were just talking about collaboration, or rather consolidation of county schools in counties. I want to move on to something similar. Collaboration has been kind of a buzzword in not only local government, but in social service circles and many other areas in the last 10 or 15, 20 years or so. There is more being accomplished as nonprofit agencies or government bodies work together on certain things like planning documents or certain social services and things like that. I want to ask, and we'll go around the table on this, if a community is considering a particular service, and we'll use an example here, Titusville is just in the infant stages of considering using third-party billing to increase revenue for the fire services and emergency services that are provided by the fire department, among other things. If another community is already employing that, say Oil City is already using that kind of a billing system, Meadville just recently implemented it and had extensive discussion on it at their council meetings, had representatives in from their company to brief everyone about that. Would it make sense for officials, say in Titusville, to get in touch with officials in Oil City or Meadville to flesh this out and answer some questions that have come up that perhaps someone is doing research on here in the local area, but the answers may be very well more easily available. Alex, I'll start with you.
I think it would be a great thing to feature cooperation between communities and townships. I mean, if something is working for somebody, they're going to find out. They're also going to find out by talking with them, what are the downfalls? Where do you have to put more resources into? These are things that are essential to know when considering something. and that's what they got to consider. You can do a lot of research, but if you talk to somebody that has firsthand knowledge, there you go.
I don't know about your example, but I'm solicitor for the borough of Polk, tiny little borough. I spend an hour, it raises their taxes $1 for everybody. It's just so small. But they have a cooperation agreement for police services. So Polk Borough has 2 police officers, police cars, and a number of the surrounding boroughs and townships. We've entered into cooperation agreements where our police force serves their communities as well. And, they pay something to Polk for that service. Makes a lot of sense. It saves money. You're not duplicating things. Another problem that Polk has is they don't have municipal water. So everybody's on water wells, but they have municipal sewage. Well, if people don't pay their sewer bills, we can't turn off their water. And so we end up having to file liens at the courthouse, and there's all these procedures you have to follow. It's ridiculously expensive. It would make sense for all municipalities that have that kind of situation to work together so that they're not each reinventing the procedure to take care of that. So there's lots of opportunities like that for cooperation, and state law provides for municipalities to enter into these cooperation agreements.
Has that gotten easier over the years as time has gone on?
I know nothing about how hard it was before, but it's not hard. You just make an agreement. The councils of each municipality approve the agreement, and off you go.
Well, it sounds like the process is simple enough, but I wonder, there's that bugaboo change. Everybody wants things to be different, but they don't want anything to change.
I think on a lot of these, people don't care. I mean, people aren't going to care. It's different from the school. People identify with their schools. I don't know that they identify with their police forces.
Right. Yeah, as long as they're not going to lose services, and as long as they see that it's going to save money, and a lot of people don't pay attention. I think when councils do talk about making these kind of changes, and often I think when they get the ideas, they come from other municipalities. Is usually what happens is they see another borough or city do the same thing, and that's why they usually end up taking it up in the first place.
Well, and another good example of the collaboration recently has been between counties. Crawford Area Transportation, for all intents and purposes, merged with the Venango Go Bus, and it seems to be working out quite well. Of course, there's the new multimodal system that's going, or the building that's going to be built in downtown Oil City to accommodate all of that. But I think that's probably one case where collaboration has really paid off. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it has. I mean, 2 communities working together saying, hey, this is what we can do. It's what it should be all around, not only in communities, but also in local, state, and federal governments as well.
Well, in my own experience, I've seen it work well in the social services arena. There's been a collaborative group in Venango County probably for decades now, and it's waned in strength and popularity. I think it's under a different name these days, but it really made sense to see the agencies, and sometimes when they met during the month, there would probably be upwards of about 8, 15, 20 agencies that would all meet in the same room for a couple of hours every month, make sure that they were all on the same page, that they could provide services without duplicating services of another, to make sure that they could maximize everything that they were working on. What we're seeing right now on the screen is an artist's or an architect's rendition of the multimodal building here that'll be coming along. I think it's the parking facility that's going to be later this year in Oil City, and the building will come along next year.
Is that being built on the site of the old Quaker State parking garage?
It is my understanding that that's going to take place there.
That's wonderful.
So, yeah, it's amazing if you're down in downtown Oil City. All of a sudden, in the last couple of years or so, 3 or 4 years, there's a lot of green space.
and they take out those old buildings, and you get that nice green space. The property values around it go up, and it looks so much better.
Well, I think one of the things that people are starting to realize in some of the surrounding buildings is, hey, there's a good-looking building across the way there.
Yeah.
You know, and these kinds of things need to be promoted.
Might not have been so good looking when its windows looked out at the side of another building, but now that it looks out at a green square, yeah.
It's not such a bad thing. There were a lot of folks who were concerned that by taking down the Brody block, which was got to be a real unsightly mess after a while on the Center Street portion of the north side there, and taking down the parking garage in Oil City, that there would be revenue that would be lost as far as, instead of making that a green space, promoting a commercial center. And honestly, I think the feedback for some green space downtown has been a really good thing.
I think the opposite would be true. I mean, Franklin looks better than Oil City, but it's simply because Franklin was never as big as Oil City, so we don't have as many empty storefronts. So when you drive into Franklin, it looks like a charming town. You drive into Oil City and it looks depressed because you got all these empty storefronts. Take them down, and what's left increases in value, and now people might want to start coming there because now it's charming. Oil City looks so much better with that square cleared out, and I think they should take out all that stuff that's along the creek there as you're coming into Oil City from Franklin, so that you can see the city as you pull up. But property that belongs to somebody. So.
Well, there have been plans in the past, and I think if you were to go to City Hall, you'd probably find a plan on somebody's shelf to develop all of that waterfront along Oil Creek. I'm reminded also that Meadville faced a similar issue in, I guess, renovating a parking garage, taking one down and building a lot instead. It has done a lot to open the place up and make it more appealing. There's been some issue with making downtown areas in, I guess the euphemism these days is post-industrial areas, Rust Belt areas, is to make these areas a little bit more appealing to come into by clearing out some green space, those kinds of things. Fred, is there an effect on the economy by actually tearing out buildings by maybe removing potential for commercial ventures there?
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think it's. I mean, it might seem like it's just making aesthetically pleasing, but that has a lot to do with whether or not people want to relocate. And I know probably a lot of people from Titusville disagree with this, but when you first come into town from the east, past the football field, and there are all those industrial buildings there, over the last few years they've been purchased and renovated on the outside, and they look a lot better. People used to think, it gives us an aggressive feel, it intimidates people when they come to put football against that. And I was like, no, that's not what people think when they drive into Titusville. And because that's been repaired, it does look a lot better, and the whole football field complex looks a lot better because it's right next to it. And I think that does make a town more welcoming, and it does increase property values. And plus, with rundown old buildings, there's a lot of other negative side effects that come with that, with pest control and just a myriad of other problems that I think come up. And communities have a lot of tough calls to make because there are some buildings that are unsightly, but they might have an historic value, and it's really a choice of whether or not you try to fix them up. If nobody's using them, you've got to ask yourself what the point is. And how much enforcement of historical protection do you put in place as well? I know that's something that's come up here, that cities accepted some grant money, and some of the facades and some of the buildings will be repaired and brought up to speed, but that also brings in regulation and control over properties.
It's funny you mention that. Isn't it funny or odd, I guess, what it is that drives people to public meetings as well? The historical overlay issue drove a lot of people to council meetings in Meadville. There were issues over over fire protection as the city wrangled over its budget. In Oil City recently, people have rallied around the Tyrant's Bench, the park bench in Oil City, things like that.
Fortunately, the camera wasn't on me when you said that. rolled my eyes.
You want to do it again?
Well, we're going to go around the table and get your feelings about these things, but I think it's just interesting. What issues drive people to a meeting? When these public bodies that govern us are busy making budgets, having discussions, taking care of business on a regular basis, we don't see people so much. But things that may in the long run not mean. And I don't mean to belittle the issue with in Oil City over the bench, but things in the long run that may not make a hill of beans as far as economic development or growth or betterment, preoccupy folks quite a bit. And as I mentioned before, sometimes there's just more heat than light that comes out of some of these things, Fred.
I think emotion plays the biggest role in why people actually show up for local government issues. We talked about schools and protecting your home school district or your home school district's sports teams, and it's very arbitrary. I mean, where a school district's borders fell on whether you're loyal to it or not. And the same thing that's true with towns and cities is that a lot of those issues are often sentimentality. It's true that maybe historically protecting a town's infrastructure or buildings will draw people in economically, but unless it's done on a large scale, that's not necessarily true. But people feel the attachment, we need to keep things looking the way it used to. Or with fire department, personally, I believe that having a full-time fire department, a paid fire department, increases response time and things like that, especially in a more populated area. But I think a lot of people just come out to support it because it makes them feel safer without actually checking on any of the statistics. So I think a large part of it is often an emotional response. And even when it comes to money and raising taxes, people show up for that issue as well, but it's more based on outrage. People don't often check to see if their taxes are more or less compared to others, and it's just if it goes up. And so I think there is a lot to be said about an emotional reaction. And truth be told, a lot of people, if they just came to the meetings to listen to the factual reports that go on, they'd probably fall asleep. So that's and so I think emotion does play a big role in whether or not people get concerned about it.
I fell asleep at a public meeting once that I was actually covering. I had the misfortune of sitting next to the Sugar Creek Borough police chief, and toward the end of the meeting, I asked him a question about something, and he said, "What do you care? You slept through half the meeting." And sometimes it will do that. But, Alex, this speaks a lot to some of the reaction that, folks had for Venango Catholic. Sure. There was a great deal of pride with those folks, but do you think it was, emotional attachment as well?
To an extent, yes. But, there is the saying there, it's the BC family. You can go there, watch a basketball game. It's many facets of it. You are made to feel like you belong there, whether you're Catholic, Protestant, any religion. You don't have to be Catholic to go there, like a lot of people think, but you are made to feel like you belong. And you know that if you need anything, you can ask them, and they will do what they can to help you. And that's part of it. But it was an emotional thing. We're now celebrating our 56th year at BC, so I believe so. Someone who's been around for over half a century, you don't want to let it go.
One of the other issues that has driven people to meetings, and not that any of the four of us know a great deal about all of the stuff that goes on in Meadville, but fluoridation, water fluoridation has been a big deal.
Communist plot
over there. Well, since you mentioned it, why don't you tell us a little bit more?
I know nothing about it going on in Meadville. I know there's people who think fluoridation is a communist plot. But I don't know.
Yeah. It's we have some discussion that we have heard by way of some clips with Armstrong over recent months. We'll see what they have to say, and then we'll continue the discussion from there.
Thank you all. My name is Johnny Johnson. I'm a pediatric dentist from Palm Harbor, Florida. I had a nice little bicycle accident in 2002 and became disabled to practice clinical dentistry. 2009, I had to stop because my right wrist is fused. I can't bend it any longer. So it just happened to be that in 2011 that my county commission decided to take up the subject of water fluoridation on the spur of the moment during a meeting on budgets, which is interesting time to take it up. So anyhow, the county commission, after 4.5 hours of hearing people speak and argue against fluoridation, used the arguments that those who oppose fluoridation, claiming that the CDC is corrupt and they are politically motivated, and I can't even begin to tell you the number of other claims. They voted 4-3 to cease water fluoridation for 700,000 people. With my background and my time that I have put into research and publishing 2 papers on community water fluoridation in peer-reviewed literature, I was angry, and I just would not let it stand. 700,000 of my kids and my families and my adults, my own family as well, living in Pinellas County, doing something that's not based on science, but based on emotion and based on own opinions. So I went on to represent those that were going to refluoridate the county, got asked to lead the effort, and 15 months later, we had it back.
My name's Chris Knapp. I'm a local chiropractor, citizen of Meadville. This is how I got involved with the fluoride issue. I was walking up the steps of the YMCA and I saw a paper box, and the box said that the local Smiles group wanted to add fluoride to our water. And it disturbed me. I remembered back in the 70s when my dad was involved with this issue, and he advised us, if this ever comes up again, look into it. And I did. And here's the marker that I used. And I just came up with it indiscriminately. It wasn't planned. 8%. I said, I'll get involved with this issue. I knew about dental fluorosis. If more than 8% of our community is affected by fluorosis, I'll get involved. Well, 41% of our 12 to 15-year-olds in the United States have some form of dental fluorosis. So that exceeded that 8%, and that's what got me involved in this. Now, tonight, the proponents have a big task ahead of them here. It's not an easy one. In order to justify forcing people to drink water containing fluoride, they have to provide compelling scientific evidence that swallowing fluoride actually lowers tooth decay by a significant amount. They also have to prove that swallowing fluoride over a lifetime is safe for everyone, including bottle-fed babies, people with poor nutrition, people with kidney problems, diabetics, people who exercise a lot, drink more water than those who don't. And what I mean by this is peer-reviewed primary studies, and especially randomized control studies. After 70 years, there's not been one randomized control trial demonstrating that swallowing fluoride lowers tooth decay. You saw a lot of endorsements. Fluoride proponents cite a long list of professional bodies, dental associations, government agencies that endorse water fluoridation. But endorsements aren't science, they're opinions. And those opinions are only as good as the science that's mobilized to support them.
And so the discussion there goes on. I'm being told 2.5 hours worth of discussion on that. I don't know much about the subject one way or the other, but I wonder if any of you have opinions on this one way or the other.
In law, you know, like I file a complaint, the other side files an answer, or vice versa, and you're making competing assertions of fact, which is what's happening here. The role of the judge and the jury then is to decide which of those competing versions of fact is the correct version of fact. And that's what we don't have. I mean, like, that presentation that second gentleman just made, if he's correct, that's pretty compelling. But we don't know that it's correct. I don't know that it's wrong either, but and that's what happens in these political debates. You get assertions being made with nobody really arbitrating where's the truth here. I mean, if what that guy's saying is true, I mean, arguing that it's a communist plot, that's what I'm not buying that. But if it's in fact true that fluoridation, 41% of people have fluorosis. We looked it up. It's some modeling of the teeth, some excess enamel formation or something. If it has a detrimental effect and there is no science showing that it does any good, it doesn't make sense to keep doing it. I don't know the truth of the matter.
Why not cooperation between both sides then? Say,
it's not. They disagree. They disagree on the facts.
Fluoride in the waters. So how about you cut it by half? See if that.
Well, that's what the science is. That's what the science is. He's telling us what the science is, but we have the same argument on global warming. There's science says one thing, and then one political party accuses the other of being anti-science, and then the charge gets thrown back. Unless you want to spend the time to examine the science yourself, you don't know.
Well, obviously it's a little bit like investigative reporting as well. It's
Which,
very
by the way, there's not enough of, because papers can't afford it anymore.
Well, that's true. It's very time consuming. It kind of feeds on itself almost. If you're going to do a good job with something like that, you have to devote most of your waking hours to something like that.
And too much reporting now is just quoting what somebody said, instead
absolutely.
of actually taking responsibility for ascertaining what are the real facts.
Well, original reporting is definitely an issue. Even here, as basically a one-person news department, it's difficult to get all of that original reporting.
You do such an excellent job.
Then we go like this, Bob.
Yeah. Once in a while. But at any rate, the point is that the research to do something like that,
Right.
not only is it time consuming, but it's probably pretty expensive to carry out as well. One wonders, if this is going to come before, a council again, how folks are going to, have this play out. If, some incumbent that doesn't get, reelected may not have to deal with the issue, again, at some point. But at any rate, that's one of the issues that, have brought people out. And as, you saw, we were told this was, a 2.5-hour meeting that, we saw a couple of outtakes from, and it went back and forth for quite a while. Looking at the time, it's about 8:30 or so. We'll be taking a break here shortly. We'll be talking with candidates here in a little while. We'll have Jack Lynch on the phone, and we'll continue with election coverage, primary coverage of the Pennsylvania primary for 2017 in Venango and Crawford counties. This is Armstrong and Stream Television. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Hi, I'm Janice, and I'm here to answer all your questions about EXP. Absolutely not. It's not complicated at all. It is much simpler than the old remote. Everything is compact, and it doesn't have near as many buttons. It tells you exactly what it's going to do. The green button right there, that's on demand. It's very clearly marked what each button is for. You don't have to figure it out.
Anyone with a kind and generous heart and a little money can be a philanthropist. You too can be a force for good in our community, and the Crawford Heritage Community Foundation is here to help you make the most of your charitable giving. We've partnered with hundreds of people like you to make our world and our community a better place. You can give through us to support scholarships or any charitable organization or purpose. Whether you're interested in establishing a permanent endowment or adding to an existing fund, we want to be a part of your plan. Contact us when you're ready to make your mark. Together, we can make your contribution go further.
Seifert's Furniture has been offering quality, American-made furniture for over 60 years. Brand name furniture to work with all budgets for the living room, dining room, family room, and bedroom. Visit our showroom and see one of the largest selections of recliners and lift chairs in our region. Look, buy and take it home or have it delivered. Customer service is our top priority. Let us assist you in designing the perfect room for your home. Seifert's Furniture on the Conneaut Lake Road in Conneaut Lake.
No one plans on breaking down or getting stuck, but you can plan on Shambaugh's Towing to be there to help you out. Since 2010, Shambaugh's has been serving Northwest PA with quality roadside assistance services and auto and truck repairs. No job is too small or too big for Shambaugh's. So for heavy towing, emergency roadside service, flatbed services, jumpstart, lockouts, tire changes, and more, there's only one place to call when your life's in shambles. Call Shambaugh's, 814-827-1431, or visit them online at shambauhtowing.com.
Hello, and welcome to the Lee McFerrin Agency. We are an independent insurance company in downtown Meadville. Insurance doesn't have to be complicated, so we make it easy. Our insurance rater provides multiple quotes for your auto and homeowners insurance. You need life insurance and business insurance? We can help with those too. Yes, we do understand you have a lot of insurance options, but the Lee McFerrin Agency will be there when you need us most. Give us a chance to give you a quote. Call today, 814-209-7375.
Anderson Physical Therapy is committed to your long-term health and well-being. With certified, licensed therapists, Anderson's can provide therapy for all your rehabilitation needs. With our new location in Titusville at 202 Union Street and our new offices at 118 Main Street, Tityute, Anderson makes it convenient for you to get back to doing the things you enjoy. So stay on top of your game with Anderson Physical Therapy. Now in 7 locations and online 24/7 at andersonphysicaltherapy.net.
Welcome back to Primary 2017, brought to you by the Stream Television and Armstrong. We are covering the Pennsylvania primary returns in Crawford County and Venango County. We are being advised that returns are beginning to come in, and we should see them here before too long. In the meantime, we have a new face at the table. Melissa Bergman here is with us. Melissa has been here before. Alex Motzer joining us, and Bob Martin.
Old face.
As he says, an old face. But one that we're happy to have.
Well, you are.
Well, yes, I am.
I'm not happy with this.
Don't even get me started. This could go very wrong very quickly. So at any rate, we have covered an awful lot of ground tonight, and we've covered just recently, just talking about fluoridation, water fluoridation, among other things. So one of the things that we alluded to just a little while ago, we were talking about some of the things that draw people out to public meetings. Bob, you mentioned during the break that there's a lot of issues surrounding this tyrant's bench issue in Oil City. Basically, to bring people up to speed, there was an atheist group that contacted the city last fall about this. Is that right?
Yeah, the bench, I guess, was put there by the VFW, or was it the VFW?
Yes, it was.
And it says something to the effect, those who do not believe in God will be ruled by tyrants, or something
Those
like
who
that?
are not ruled by God are thus ruled by tyrants.
Okay, something like that.
Yeah,
So-
it's a quote from William Penn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ACLU, or who was it?
National Atheists.
National Atheists,
Association.
some atheist group. They challenged that. It's in the public square. It's an endorsement of faith, and they objected to that, and they offered to replace it with another bench.
But they had to have their tag on the back of it, provided by them.
Yeah, that was interesting. I only learned of that recently. But I happen to agree that the bench shouldn't be there. I mean, I'm sympathetic with the sentiment that the bench expresses. But what if that bench had said religion is the cause of wars, which some people believe, these people who are arguing for this bench to stay in Oil City in the public park, would they be arguing for that? Or would they be arguing for, how would they feel if, well, anyway, or, a statue of Moloch or something, you can't have, you can't say that we're going to keep religion out of the public square unless we agree with it. It's all or nothing. And so I think kind of what goes on a little bit, I think, I'm really going to go out on a limb here. I think there are people that believe that by taking stands on such things, they're proving their devotion to Jesus. And there's a passage in Matthew where he says, there shall be many who shall say unto me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not done many mighty works in thy name? And I will say, depart from me, I never knew you. So how's that for over the top?
Well, I think it's a very valid point. It's one that I had not delved into very much. I think some of the conversation that I heard surrounding the Tyrant's Bench issue was well, I live in Oil City, so one of the things that really bothered me with it is that an outside group chose to make a stand on a particular issue in a Rust Belt town where they knew that the city could be easily coerced into a decision their way.
Well, that was according to the lady on Fox that is I guess a lawyer for the NAA, or not. It was one person in Oil City that called them to complain, and that's how they were brought into it.
But that's the way I see it. That's irrelevant. I remember, I forget who he was. He was a Republican who was a defense secretary under Clinton, and we'd done some military action against some smaller country to enforce some human rights issue, and the reporter said, "But same thing goes on in Russia. Why don't you invade Russia?" And the guy, without blinking, he said, "Well, they're a world power." Obviously, and so yeah, they pick fights they can win. We shouldn't be picking fights that we'll lose, and that's kind of what we did with that Tyrant's Bench. We were in the wrong, and yeah, the majority agreed with it. And yeah, it was just one person complaining about it, and yes, this atheist group that most of us don't like complaining about it. But the fact of the matter is, if we can have a bench there that says, people who believe in God or be ruled by tyrants, we can have a bench that says religion is the cause of war, or it's good to sacrifice your children to Moloch. I mean, you can't. It's one or the other.
It's double-edged sword.
I'd be interested in getting your opinion on this.
I think that the atheist group should have been giving an opportunity to put a bench in, and we do run the risk that they could put on their bench something very, as long as it's not obscene or profane, they could put language on there that religion is what is the cause of war, or some other examples that you had provided. What I would like to see happen would be for a private citizen to step up and say, okay, fine, if we can't have this in the public square, I believe firmly in the message that's on this bench. I'm going to dedicate a corner of my yard that's right here on the edge.
That's in fact what's happened. They've moved it to other property.
VFW.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the VFW is actually taking it
right,
back.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah. Why do we have to have that fight? It's not a fight we want to be having.
I agree with what you have said, but at the same time, if we go back to what the Constitution actually says in the First Amendment, and we look at what where that passage originates in terms of the separation between church and state, I mean, most people who are familiar with the Constitution know that the Constitution does not actually say separation between church and state. In fact, it was a letter from Jefferson.
No establishment of religion. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, there is a slight difference there, but at the same time, I agree, you have to pick your fights and choose your battles and decide what are we willing to stand up against. And
I mean, the same people that are fighting for that bench would be fighting against a bench that said religion is the cause of war. And you just got to think two moves ahead, not one. Because if they were to win that argument that bench stays there, next you got idiots putting up statues of Satan.
Absolutely.
Well, one of the things that also came up with that is the city officials privately were not pleased that there was such an outcry on that. I guess what I'm saying is that if folks can get that wound up over something like that, where are they, when there are really issues that count, where is the city going to get its revenue? How are we going to improve, housing and economic development and things like that? It's easy to get on the bandwagon with an issue like that. There's a lot of traction with it.
The city I'm friends with the solicitor of Oil City. I'm sure his opinion to the city was, you're going to lose if you fight this. And he would have been right about that. And the city's looking at the expense of fighting it. Why incur that expense to fight a fight you're going to lose?
Right.
The same thing happened a few years ago. Governor Corbett, there was a decision that came down. I don't recall what it was about. I don't recall if it was abortion or same-sex marriage or something. And Corbett decided not to appeal it. And that caused an uproar. But again, it's the same thing. You're looking at a case you're not going to win, and it's going to cost the taxpayers a lot of money.
That might have played a little bit into it, but I'm pretty sure he felt that if he appealed it, he was definitely going to lose re-election no matter which way. He was trying to play the cards.
I don't mean lose the re-election. He was going to, if he appealed it, he'd lose the appeal.
He probably would have lost the appeal if he would have appealed it further, but he was also thinking numbers, because he tried to distance himself from everything that happened at Penn State, thinking, hey, if I distance myself far enough, I'm not going to lose the state college vote. So he was trying to play both sides to an extent on that.
I don't know. I just know that it would cost the taxpayers money to appeal it, and it wasn't an appeal he was going to win.
Well, I mean, that's similar to what often happens in a divorce case. You might advise a client that, okay, if we take this case the whole way before a master or before the judge, we can do that, and you might get this extra $5,000, but in order to get there, you're going to end up paying an extra $10,000. So you have to decide, which fights are you going to choose, and absolutely.
I mean, hey, you can go to court and fight this, but they're offering 7 years versus a possibility of 25, which, you have to decide what you're willing to accept.
Well, one of the things that you mentioned, we were just heard the word budget come up here shortly, just a little while ago. It's pretty obvious that Governor Wolf is going to be on the ballot again in a couple of years to run for a second term. I'm kind of wondering how, at this point, his performance with the budget is going to play into, how people feel about it, putting him back in the governor's mansion. There's a lot of noise already being made in political circles about, other Democrats running for the nomination, of course, Republicans.
So somebody's primary challenge.
Yeah,
I don't see
well,
that
not
happening.
today, but but there is already noise that he will be opposed. And I wonder how those conversations are going to go as well.
I don't think anybody will oppose him. Somebody will think about it, but I mean, it's almost in a way you're putting your entire political future on the line by trying to go against an incumbent, whether it's state senate, U.S. Senate. If you're in that party and you say, yeah, I don't really necessarily like that, when it comes your turn or your chance to run for something big, you're not only the party, but a lot of the voters are going to look and go, wow, should we even support him? He doesn't want to. We have a seat. This might not be the best person, but should we really fight and lose a seat because we're fighting inward? And that's where it's going to come in. In my opinion, he's done a heck of a job. I mean, I think there needs to be give and take. He sent in a pretty decent budget. I mean, I wouldn't say it would help everybody, but it would do good on a lot of things he's been wanting to do. But whenever his budget got there, the controlled legislature just said, no, we don't like any of that. And they just ripped it apart, and they're making their own budget. They're not wanting to go both sides and say, hey, where can we meet in the middle somewhere? Whether it's school funding or a myriad of other ways.
The middle always seems to be more. That is, you've got, let's hold the line on taxes. Somebody wants a whole lot of taxes, and so let's compromise by having somewhat more taxes. The compromise is always more, and at some point you got to say no more. My guess, I don't know, but my guess is that the governor's race will be decided by things other than state politics. I'm guessing it'll be a Republican-Democrat contest with some of the national issues in play.
So possibly the senatorial race will help decide the gubernatorial race.
I don't know about that. I just think the people that voted for Trump are going to be wanting to vote for somebody, another Republican. I'm just guessing. And I don't think it. I follow the national news, and I get the local paper, which covers local stuff. I really have very little information about what goes on in state politics, and I'm guessing I'm not alone in that. And whatever's been going on between the governor and the Republicans, I don't think very many people are sufficiently informed to make any judgment on that. It's just parties fighting.
I think a lot of people were very frustrated with that first budget process on both sides of the aisle.
I wrote a letter to the editor because somebody wrote a letter to the editor about, hey, Governor Corbett was elected by a majority, therefore we should do his budget. I responded, yeah, and we also increased the number of Republican seats in the legislature, so we should do. Because they were trying to play it as Corbett got elected, therefore we should do his budget, but the reverse was also true, that we increased the majorities in the legislature. I'm not saying who's right or wrong on that. I just each side's blaming the other, and I can't say you can say either side's right.
Melissa, you have a lot of contact with the social services of Crawford County, and I don't know how much involvement you had at the time when all of this, the governor's new budget or first budget was having so much effect, but I wonder how you see that.
Well, I'm the assistant solicitor for Crawford County Children and Youth Services, and in that there have been a lot of concerns in terms of the funding that's available for human services, not just the CYS aspect of it, but also the intellectual disabilities and mental health services and things like that that are available to people. And as somebody who deals with the children who are obviously impacted by the parents who don't have these services that need them, I mean, it's something that we need to make sure is there in the budget. We need to make sure that these people are provided for adequately and that they can in fact get those services. Oftentimes they may not be covered by insurance, or the individuals might not have insurance. And we need to make sure, for the sake of these kids, that these people these services are available when they choose to accept them.
And we saw it on a number of different levels. There was a rally in Meadville that we actually covered. I think it was in October of that year before the November election, where a representative from almost all of the social services was out there. We were there. We talked with almost all of them. And after we went home, after we covered that, we thought that would probably have some impact. And will it be, it dragged on another 7 or 8 months. It was probably March the following year before it was, really before it was really resolved. It's had some significant impact on the governor's thinking. I'm just wondering if, how does all that play into this year's budget? Any thoughts, about that? It'll be an interesting thing to see. It looks like we'll probably be taking a break in just a few minutes. One of the things I'd like to revisit, we've talked about the state judges' races a couple of times tonight. Bob, you mentioned a few moments ago that the idea of folks who are reasonably well informed, and I believe that you would consider yourself reasonably well informed on most issues, but with a lack of or not being able to get all of the state news that maybe you would want. How that impacts the ability to make a decision on a statewide race. I went into the voting booth today. I looked at the choices for governor or for judge. There was an article that I ran across that said, folks don't have to make a blind choice for these judges. You can do a little bit of research. But folks like me, you know, we meet ourselves coming and going. We come into the voting booth, and we frequently choose on the basis of, you know, someone's home county. You know, that seems like a serious impact when it comes to not having, you know, access to adequate local news. So, you know, one of those things we want to be mindful of as well. Wonder if you have an opinion on that.
I think oftentimes people, I think you hit the nail on the head with saying that oftentimes people pick, especially a judicial race, they don't understand the impact that that's going to have. So they'll pick somebody based on what county are they from, or they, you know, and I hate to say it, but oftentimes I'll pick the first person on the list, or I'll pick, oh, I like that name, so I'll just pick that name. And it happens, and unfortunately too often, but, you know, these are serious elections. It's going to have lasting impacts, and if we have judges on the bench that are going to be activist judges and that are going to make the law instead of simply enforcing it, you know, we're gonna run into some problems. I mean, oftentimes there's a pretty clear-cut picture in terms of what the law is and how it's supposed to be followed. There are those instances where we have an ambiguous law or other similar situations where a determination has to be made, and obviously if the legislature is not comfortable with the choice the judge has made, they can then go ahead and say, we're going to rewrite this law and we're going to make it this way so it's perfectly clear that this is what we intended, not something else. But I think it's important to be informed about the judges and to know who they are and you know what their viewpoints would be in terms of, am I going to be a judge who strictly enforces, or am I going to be a judge who says, well, I don't exactly like that provision, so I'm going to go ahead and you know, decide this case this way. And a lot of people might think, well, that's never going to have an impact on me. I'm never going to go to court. I'm never going to be arrested. I'm never going to you know, be involved in a civil suit. And all too often you have these people who, they find themselves in these positions, and, you know, I've had clients sitting in my office saying, I never thought I'd be here. And it happens.
It doesn't just affect the people who end up in court. You know, one of the, we're supposed to be a government of laws, not of men or women, gender neutral. But if judges do what they feel is right rather than what the law says, you can no longer predict legal outcomes. So you have a client comes to you and says, can I do this? I don't know. Depends on the judge. You know, that's not the answer we should be given. We should be able to say, the law says this, if you do that, you'll be fine. And the more judges disregard the law or start injecting personal opinion, the less you're able to advise clients, and less people are able to know what is permissible and what isn't.
We are at a point where we're going to take another break here. We'll give everyone a break for a few minutes. Thanks for being with us tonight on live primary election coverage, primary 2017, here in Crawford and Venango counties. Brought to you by Stream Television and Armstrong. We will be back in just a few moments.
Andrews Hilltop Hardware in Pleasantville is more than just your average hardware store. Sure, they carry the normal hardware store supplies, but it's the other items that makes them stand alone, like carrying sporting goods, dog tags, hunting and fishing licenses and supplies, plus a friendly and knowledgeable staff who can actually assist you with any home improvement project question you may have. Open Monday through Friday, 8 to 6, and Saturday and Sundays, 8 to 2. It's Andrews Hilltop Hardware, 123 East State Street in Pleasantville. It's time to hitch up and hit the road to experience the great outdoors with your friends and family. Penn RV carries work and play, Wildwood, and Flagstaff recreational vehicles and pop-ups, RV supplies, and accessories. Ken and Margo have been in the RV business for almost 45 years, with Ken holding a master's certification as an RV technician. Summer hours are Monday and Thursday 9 to 7, Tuesday and Friday 9 to 5, and Wednesday and Saturdays 9 to 1. Like us on Facebook and stop in so you can hit the road and enjoy life with Penn RV Center on Route 8 south of Titusville.
Hospital partners, Meadville Medical Center and Titusville Area Hospital together provide a continuum of high-quality care across Crawford County. Both create the ultimate patient experience. Every patient, every time. Meadville Medical Center and Titusville Area Hospital are more than a hospital. We are a hospital partner, a community partner, a family partner, and a health partner.
...2017 Renegade.
Upwards to $3,000.
2017 Pacifica.
That'd be upwards to $3,000.
2017 Cherokee.
That's up to $6,000.
What are you guys doing?
We're just practicing for our Memory Day sales event.
It's not the Memory Day sale, it's the Memorial Day sale.
Oh.
They think they're TV stars. Memory Day sale.
It's a Memorial Day sales event here at Donovan Bauer, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, and Ram on the Highttown Road in Titusville.
My name's Carolyn Hall, and I work at Byams Insurance. I am an insurance agent. In this ever-changing world, we're all connected. As an insurance agency, we worry about our clients and the information that they're providing to us, and we want to make sure that all of our software systems are safe and secure. And our specialty is not in that field. Our specialty is to help our clients find the right policy for them. Knowing that we have Hagen's watching over us 24/7 is very comforting to us, helps us sleep at night.
Anderson Physical Therapy is committed to your long-term health and well-being. With certified, licensed therapists, Anderson's can provide therapy for all your rehabilitation needs. With our new location in Titusville at 202 Union Street and our new offices at 118 Main Street, Tityute, Anderson makes it convenient for you to get back to doing the things you enjoy. So stay on top of your game with Anderson Physical Therapy, now in 7 locations and online 24/7 at andersonphysicaltherapy.net.
And welcome back to the next segment of our coverage of the Pennsylvania primary in Crawford County and Venango County. This is primary 17, Pennsylvania primary coverage 2017, and we are entering into the 4th hour of our discussions. We have talked about a great many things. The polls have closed in about an hour ago. We are in the process of gathering up some results and some numbers, and I believe that we will probably have Jack Lynch, who is on the phone with us even now as we speak. So, Jack, how are you? What's new in your neighborhood?
Hey, Mark. Some results are actually coming in here, and what we'd like to do, we'd like to make a call here for the decontested race here in the greater Meadville area. That would be for the mayor, and we do have with us the current mayor, sitting mayor, Leroy Stearns. And let me introduce Leroy briefly and let him say a few words if he might. Leroy, this is the stream. This is more time. A few thoughts if you'd like to share here 4 hours in.
A lot of emotions.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we have to wait till the final numbers come in, but there's a pretty good lead between Sean and I, and comfortable, but of course we'll wait till those final numbers come in, but I'm pretty pleased.
Hey, we wanted to catch you before, because you know how fluid things are, and you're moving around and doing things. In your mind, was there a driving issue that you saw that distinguished yourself in terms of the folks you talked to, or was it more or less just politics as usual? What could you tell us that were in folks' minds as you spoke to them?
Well, I think what they were looking at is that they saw movement in the city of Meadville, some advancement on businesses that have started, and council works as a team. It's not one person. Sean and I work great together on council. I have 19 years experience, which I think is a big help, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with Sean, as a councilman, so we can continue as business and moving Meadville forward.
I want to thank you for your time, and what we'll do is we'll stay close to the numbers, Leroy, and if anything changes, but we're pretty confident in what we see now with the reporting coming in. And we want to thank you for your time and congratulate you as well.
Thank you very much.
Sir, we'll talk to you soon, and best of luck. Catch you later. Thank you. And Mark, it's pretty active here. What I'd like to do is the numbers are coming in pretty strong, And what we'll do is we'll call in just a couple minutes. We wanted to catch Leroy and update you at Crawford Central with what the current dose of numbers are. Okay?
Certainly. And if you find anything about the Titusville area too, we would certainly appreciate hearing that. Thank you for bringing Mr. Stearns, Mayor Stearns.
Yes, sir. We'll bring you the Titusville numbers as soon as they come in, and they're starting to come in pretty strong now. We think it'll be a pretty early night across the board, so give you a call in just a few.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. We'll talk with you in just a few moments.
Alrighty.
Well, it's good to see that the numbers are starting to come in. We're beginning to wonder a little bit if things were lagging somewhat. Having been down at the courthouse on any number of occasions, I know that the ballot boxes start coming in right at the crack of 8 o'clock, but sometimes it takes a little while to get them unlocked and starting to take a look at numbers and what have you. So apparently they're coming in. We'll talk with Jack Lynch from the Crawford County Courthouse here very shortly. And it looks like we have some information to pass along. Let's see. Okay, numbers and things that we are following here in the Franklin School District. These are very, very early numbers, of course, and they will be very low. Now, we have heard also that voting turnout in western Pennsylvania is ranging somewhere between 10 and 20%, so these numbers will be reflective of that. Franklin School District, we'll just go down the list here. Major Smith with 13 votes, Brian Spade 14, John Phillips 3, Veronica Santee 11, Tracy Leda 13, Jamie Hazes 9 votes, David Graham 10, Ron Richburg 13. So there are 4 seats there that were up for elections, and so the top 4 at this point are Spade, Major Smith, Tracy Lida, and let's see, looks like David and Veronica Santee at this point. So as those numbers continue to come in, Ron Richburg 13. So it looks like Smith, Lida, Richburg, also Spade, and Santee. Disappointing in the way of turnout at this point. I don't know how this represents as far as the percentage of voters at this point actually turning out in the district. We'll probably know that more later tonight. In Valley Grove, Melanie Anderson with 18 votes, Todd Carson with 20, Paul Barger with 21. In Oil City, for the Oil City School Board, Robert Hicks 18, Nick Skakowski 9, Joseph McFadden 10, Chris Hibbard 24, Mark Kerr 13, Jonathan Piercy 13, Diana Davis 25, Jeff Henry 9, Fred Weaver 12. So they were going to pick 5 seats there, and so the top 5 there would be Hibbard, Hicks, Kerr, Piercy, and looks like Fred Weaver. So at any rate, as those numbers get updated, we will certainly bring those along to you. We were talking a little while ago, how numbers tonight might be reflective of that. 10% is certainly a pretty low turnout.
That's disappointing, to say the least. I mean, especially that these are a number of very local elections. This is the school district. And we don't have Titusville numbers yet, but as a mom of 3 children, I like to see a higher turnout, so then that way when people complain that the school's not doing this or not doing that, they've at least had the opportunity to voice their opinion, but oftentimes that doesn't happen.
Fred, do you think this is a disappointing turnout for the folks who are running also?
Yeah, I think so. Their top priority is to get on the ballot in the general election, but it's nice to have support So that way you do go into the general election thinking, oh, at least I have this many that will support me. But if you only had 13 to go out and join the ballot, I mean, that's a problem, because then you can have right-on candidates that maybe have better support then. So, yeah, that lower turnout means that a positive you're on the ballot, but it also means that you don't have very good support going into the general election, unless turnout is low there as well.
On either side, actually, it's this is affecting candidates on both sides. Alex, this has to be a disappointment for folks that are, organizing efforts to get out the vote as well.
It is. I mean, you traditionally see that higher number for a presidential election, or come next year for the senatorial and gubernatorial races or midterm races, but this is where it really hits home, is whenever it's, I don't want to say it's an off election year, but it's traditionally lower. But I mean, 10% is not going to cut it. I mean, like this young lady said, you can't complain if you didn't get out and vote, and that's where it's going to come in. I mean, somebody that's not going to have the best interest of a school or a district at heart, they're going to be in there, and you don't know what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
What's actually somewhat interesting, in my opinion, is in order to get on the ballot, at least in Titusville, I think it's 125 signatures, or it's over 100 signatures that you have to get just to get on the ballot, but yet we have turnout of 20 people, 100 people maybe total that have gone out and voted, but it just, something needs to change there.
Well, in covering some of the local elections, I think the first one I covered here was in 2005, moved here in 2004, and covering most of them between then and now, I have to say I think this is probably the lowest turnout that I've come across. I was kind of appalled when I saw rates as low as 20 or 25%, and frankly, I'd be kind of pleased at this point to see 20 or 25%. We talked about this a little bit earlier on, Melissa, but evidently we're seeing maybe some backlash from the last election cycle.
It's very possible. One other thing that, in my opinion, may be playing into it is it seems that there's, at least in the circle that I tend to run with, there's a lot of people that are going to third parties. There's a lot of people that are saying, I don't want to be mainstream Republican or mainstream Democrat, and are looking to libertarian, green parties, and other third parties. And obviously in a primary, they don't have a voice. So it's very possible that if we did away with the archaic closed primary and had an open primary, that we might see greater turnout. We would allow those libertarians or the independents or the Green Party to come out and have a voice, and not just wait for the general election.
We should have had you here just a little while ago. Fred was talking about just the opposite. The opinion around the table at that point was that maybe not strong support for a closed primary, but definitely strong support for a closed primary because, as you explained, maybe it could be skewed, I think, if I heard correctly.
Yeah, I mean, that's the concern of both parties, is that you have outsiders trying to influence the election, and maybe they don't share the same political philosophy as the major planks of a platform that each party has. And so that's why some people are kind of standoffish, and we see sometimes in states with open primaries that does happen, where you have certain candidates knocked out or targeted sometimes by people voting across party lines.
And it looks like we have more numbers coming our way.
Those are the lottery numbers.
The peanut gallery is telling us lottery numbers. Certainly not at this point, but again, more numbers here for Franklin, Valley Grove, and Oil City. This is with 11 out of 46 precincts reporting in Venango County. So for Franklin School Board at this point, Major Smith 88, Brian Spade 82, John Phillips 27, Veronica Santee 84, Tracy Lida 79, Jamie Hayes 50, David Graham 54, Ron Richburg 73. In the Valley Grove contest, Melanie Anderson 18, Todd Carson 20, Paul Barger 21. Numbers improving in Oil City. Robert Hicks, 65. Nick Skakowski, 44. Joseph McFadden, 55. Chris Hibbard, 77. Mark Kerr, 43. Jonathan Piercy, 46. Diana Davis, 89. Jeff Henry, 22. Fred Weaver, 50. So the numbers are beginning to pick up a little bit. We're still only in double digits, and that's still pretty disappointing. It has to be pretty depressing for those that are, running for office to see such a low turnout. I think I mentioned a little bit earlier, poll worker that I visited today, I asked her, how things were going. And she said in November at this point, and this was like about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, she said, at this point in November, I had writer's cramp. Today, not so much. So that's sort of the difference. I had heard that in Allegheny County that the number reported was upwards of about 20% that were being expected. 10% was not only a surprise, but I think I heard the word abysmal tonight as one of the descriptions. At any rate, perhaps in a short time we'll be hearing more from Crawford County. We have already heard that it appears that H. Leroy Stearns will be the victor in the primary for city mayor on the Democratic ticket for Meadville. He will be opposing John Battaglia, a Republican, and that's how that will probably stack up in November. Now, again, not all the results are in, but we heard from Mr. Stearns that the lead that he has over Sean Donahue appears to be fairly comfortable, and so they appeared to be fairly comfortable in saying that he could be projected as a winner in that contest. So I guess our first winner for the evening. We will probably hear more about that as the evening goes on. I want to go around the table. Each of you took the opportunity to go out and vote today. I did. What issue drove you to the polls today?
It doesn't matter what the issues are. I'm one of those diehard voters that will go out no matter what. I like to have my opinion heard. I feel that way, then whenever the wrong person's elected, I can at least say that I did my part and I voted.
Fred?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the same thing. I always vote, and plus, as a social studies teacher, I would never be able to live it down if I didn't. So that's pretty important too. But yeah, I think it is essential for everybody, and I think it's important to at least take a look into the candidates and try to find out what they're about, because I don't think it's that beneficial for people to just blindly vote. I think it's important that they look into it, and I tried to do that a little bit today at lunch. To look at the ballot, first of all, which you can get online, and look at a picture of it, and then look up all the different candidates. And in a judicial election, there's not much because they can't be political at all, and you can at least read if they've been a judge before or they're just an attorney. So, not just an attorney, but what I mean. But yeah, that's important for me because it's about civic duty, and it's important for us because that's what kind of system we have where we get to choose our representatives. And I think, like she had said, if you can't really complain if you don't bother to vote. Of course, people still complain though, but
it's easy to do.
Yeah.
Alex?
It's in with the same realm. I remember back in 2004, ironically, where my church priest, he said, this coming Tuesday, get out and vote, because if you do not vote this Tuesday, you have no right to complain for the next 4 years. And I looked right at my mother and I said, well, I voted 4 years ago and I'm voting on Tuesday, so I'm going to complain all I want. And it's in with that. I mean, whether it is presidential or just gubernatorial, there is a lot of things that can be decided by the outcome of a race that is mainly local. I mean, this year it is mainly local, but you also have statewide judges. And those are the people we need to be keeping an eye on, like you said, Fred. See if they've been a judge. Are they following the letter of the law, or are they just making it up as they go, however they do it? but you want to know about your candidates, you can look it up. Who's running in the Pennsylvania primaries? So that's why you need to know. So that's why I do it.
I know for myself, I'm fascinated with the mechanics of government. I love following the elections. I can count on the fingers of one hand the number of times that I perhaps didn't get out to vote. I vote normally. And so, I join the three of you, saying it's your civic duty. I very much believe it. Preach it. And I think it's important for folks to get out and do that. Again, if you don't vote, you don't have the right to complain about anything that happens. So many folks are very, very complacent about that. I've met people from time to time. I had a neighbor across the street from me in Virginia.
And I do believe that Jack Lynch is on the phone now.
Okay, very well. We have Jack Lynch, and we'll talk with Jack just as soon as I get my earpiece.
Hey, Mark. Update time. Hey, what's happening here is that there's been you go to Election Central and things kind of roll in, and there's a pause, and then there's another jump in the numbers. So we wanted to have something to report to you. And in no particular order, I just wanted to start with the Penncrest School District. It's the first thing on the screen. On the Republican side, it's a pretty contested race in terms of the amount of folks. There's 8 of them right now, with 1 of 18 reporting, and it's very early there, is Robert Gulick having 12 votes, and the next closest competitor is Travis J. Porter. The rest are in single digits. I take that back. Mark Garau has 12 votes, and the rest are in single digits on that front. And also, for example, in the on the Republican side, in the school district Jamestown, we have to date nothing to report. So moving along a little bit, as the screen changes, let's take a look at the Republican side on the Judge of Commonwealth Court. Again, there's 2 candidates on the Republican side. Paul Lally, we have 8, now that's 8 of 68 precincts reporting in the county. 134 votes, and Christine Cannon comes in second currently, and again, it's still early at 96 votes. And you also know, and I think you may have mentioned earlier, perhaps not, but on the county level, the treasurer is running. Christine Kresiak is the Republican incumbent. She is running unopposed, and she has, of course, 100% of the vote, with 8 of 68 reporting, 165 votes. As well, the clerk of courts is Patty Weatherby. These folks have been in here for a very long time. Everybody knows Patty and Chris. Patty's unopposed on the Republican side. She has 166 votes. When you take a look at there may be some interest here in the Republican side. In the Corey School District, we have nothing in yet to report. We'll come back on that one. That's always very interesting in that Spartansburg area. As you might recall, there's been some movement last year with people on the ballot. For the director of the Crawford Central, on the Republican side, currently that's again, this is 5 of 19 reporting in that particular district. Right now on the Republican side is Jeanette Filippa, who has 76 votes, followed closely by Ross Prather, who is cross-listed. Some of these folks are cross-listed at 82, and Don Sacco at 57, and Paula Jo Lynch at 61. Moving ahead here, the Democratic school director for Union City, nothing yet. Mayor of Meadville, we discussed when we had Leroy on a little bit earlier. We're comfortable in saying this, with 5 of 9 reporting. Leroy is a 95 to 81 margin, and we looked at that'll carry through the evening. On the city of Meadville, in terms of the current deputy mayor running on the council itself, Sean Donahue at 133 votes, and Herb Reed, I believe it's 92 votes. On the Republican side, for Justice of the Supreme Court, Sally Mundy, 144 votes. That's with 8 of 68. And the Judge of Superior Court on the Republican side, right now, is Craig Stedman with 123 votes, followed by Mary Murray at 102 votes. Again, it's early. And then we have Emil Gardano at 94 votes. A couple other things we'd like to report while we got your attention over here. Democratic School Director, Conneaut Region 3, nothing yet. That's coming in soon. We'll have what we call a data dump here shortly. Democratic School District, Conneaut Region 1, with 2 of 6. It's kind of close there. But Teresa Miller is holding on to 29 votes over David Schapp with 24. Region 3, Don Ellis, Democrat, 0-4, nothing. Pencrest, very early in these. This is one of 18. It's too early to even say anything. I would say that the early jump out here is with Tim Brown on the Democratic side for Pencrest at 10 votes. And we'll have to wait to hear from Titusville. We're waiting to hear with Lynn Cressman and the Corey School District. And we have nothing yet on the board for Titusville. But when those come in, guys, we will come back to you and we'll kind of focus on those races as well. And we're hearing pretty steady, about 10%. And, in spite of that, there's an energetic crowd here, but it says a lot, in terms of the energy that I think maybe the fall deflated a lot of folks. But we'll see. We'll get you the percentage at the end of the night if we can before we wrap it up. But it looks to be between 10 and 12%, depending on the polling place, Mark.
Because that was a question we were going to check out. We're looking at some statistics from the Venango County system here showing that the total voter turnout in Venango County is about 21%. Jack, thank you very much. We'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All righty. For Venango County Coroner, we're being told at this point, with 20 of 46 precincts reporting in Venango County, that Christina Rue is leading with 1,112 votes over Jessica Ewing Falco with 302. We are just looking at the county website at this point. They have a summary sheet up, and they will be updating that. But at the moment, they're showing 20 of 46 precincts counted. That's about 44% of the precincts counted. The total voter turnout looks to be at 21% so far. Democratic turnout 16.7. Republican turnout 23.53. Moving down here, we can give you some numbers for they have the Democratic numbers first. So Justice Supreme Court shows 505 votes in Venango County. For Judge of the Superior Court, the leader there appears to be Debbie Kunselman, followed by Bill Kai, followed by Maria McLaughlin and Jeff Moulton, and then finally by Carolyn H. Nichols. Folks supposed to choose four there. For the Judge of Commonwealth Court, and again, we're looking at the Democratic numbers where folks are being told to vote no more than two. There's 6 on the ballot. The overall leader there in Venango County, folks are leaning toward Irene M. Clark and Timothy Barry. Moving to Magisterial District Judge Patrick Lowry, unopposed, and he has 154 votes. District Attorney, there is nothing there, nothing reported. There are some write-in votes, but we won't know who those are. Also, the same results for Sheriff, Register, and Recorder, Coroner. We are seeing some results for Mayor of Franklin on the Democratic ballot. There are 38 write-in votes there. For City Council at large, James Johnson with 92 votes. There are, looks like 2 spots to be filled there, but he is at 92. We're going to take a time out here, and we'll be back with some more of the numbers when we return in just a few moments. Live primary election coverage on Primary 2017 with Stream Television and Armstrong. And we will see you in just a few moments. Thank you for being with us.
Welcome to Corvetteville at Community Chevrolet. Stop into Corvetteville today and check out the area's largest selection of Corvettes, from the Stingray, the Grand Sport, or the Z06 in coupes and convertible. Take advantage of available incentives and drive the car that makes extraordinary simple. The time to deal is now. Find new roads at Community Chevrolet and pick out the vet of your dreams in Corvetteville. Used Corvettes are also available. Community Chevrolet on the Conneaut Lake Road just west of I-79 in Meadville.
Anyone with a kind and generous heart and a little money can be a philanthropist. You too can be a force for good in our community, and the Crawford Heritage Community Foundation is here to help you make the most of your charitable giving. We've partnered with hundreds of people like you to make our world and our community a better place. You can give through us to support scholarships or any charitable organization or purpose. Whether you're interested in establishing a permanent endowment or adding to an existing fund, we want to be a part of your plan. Contact us when you're ready to make your mark. Together, we can make your contribution go further.
Seifert's Furniture has been offering quality, American-made furniture for over 60 years. Brand name furniture to work with all budgets for the living room, dining room, family room, and bedroom. Visit our showroom and see one of the largest selections of recliners and lift chairs in our region. Look, buy and take it home or have it delivered. Customer service is our top priority. Let us assist you in designing the perfect room for your home. Seifert's Furniture on the Conneaut Lake Road in Conneaut Lake.
It's spring season, and that means...
That's right. Head on over to see a variety of brand new Ford vehicles. Like the Ford F-150 or the Ford Escape. The sound of a new car will be music to your ears at Joe Taylor Ford this season.
For a great deal, wherever you go, go see Joe Taylor Ford. Route 257 in Seneca.
Since Congress chartered the American Legion in 1919, the Cleo J. Ross Post 368 has been a major part of the Titusville community. The Legion promotes patriotism, honor, and committed devotion to our fellow service members and veterans. We also sponsor various programs such as youth wrestling. We offer scholarship awards and benefit dinners to aid our local community. The American Legion Cleo J. Ross Post 368 is here to make a difference at 113 East Central Avenue, Titusville.
If you are turning 65 and you're not receiving Social Security benefits or railroad retirement benefits, then you will need to take action to get signed up for Medicare. On the internet, go to socialsecurity.gov and create an account online. From there, you'll be able to sign up for your Medicare Part A and Part B benefits. You can call or you can visit your local Social Security office.
Once you get signed up for Medicare, give us a call and we can explain your Medicare insurance options to you. As always, there's no cost to meet with us. We're here to help you.
Hi, I'm Janice, and I'm here to answer all your questions about EXP. Absolutely not. It's not complicated at all. It is much simpler than the old remote. Everything is compact, and it doesn't have near as many buttons. It tells you exactly what it's going to do. The green button right there, that's on demand. It's very clearly marked what each button is for. You don't have to figure it out.
Welcome back to the final segment of our live primary election coverage for Crawford and Venango County on primary 2017 on Armstrong and Stream Television. We are seeing a rapid increase in the number of returns coming in. We'll be taking a look at numbers, and Bob, I think you have some information as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to show, this is a slate card that was published by the state GOP. And it lists the candidates for the various judicial offices in the order in which they appear on the ballot. And so you see Sally Mundy there at the top for the Supreme Court, Emil Giordano, Craig Stedman, and Wade Cagarisi, and Paula Patrick were the endorsed candidates by the GOP, and they were rated recommended or higher by the Pennsylvania Bar Association. But my concern was, because this is the order in which they appear on the ballots, a lot of people may vote for the first four people and end up voting for this unendorsed candidate ahead of Paula Patrick. And from the numbers, it appears that may be the case. And that's really a disappointment to me, because Miss Patrick, she's just really impressive. She's quite the ball of fire. And then Paul Lally and basically Sally Mundy and Paul Lally and Christine Cannon, they're running unopposed because there's two slots or one slot, and that's how many are running. So the race to watch there is really between Paula Patrick and this unendorsed candidate.
Well, thank you for bringing us up to speed on that. Looking at some of the county numbers from Venango, it appears they are up to 65% in their count of the precincts. One of the several of the races that we are keeping in touch with here are school board races for school director, and we are looking at the Republican side of the ballot. We'll switch up here to the Democratic side here in just a moment. But on the Republican side of the ballot, and all of these are cross-filed candidates for Oil City. The numbers look like this. Robert Hicks, 235 votes. Joseph E. McFadden, 262. Mark Kerr, 227. Fred Weaver, 293. Jeff Henry, 125. Jonathan Piercy, 171. Chris Hibbard, 265. Nick Skakowski, 195. Diana S. Davis, 262. So the numbers are pretty well bunched up toward the top. It looks like Chris Hibbard is the top vote getter, followed actually by a tie between Diana Davis and Joseph E. McFadden. So 1, 2, and 3 there at that point. Also, it looks like fourth would be Robert Hicks, and it looks like the fifth top vote getter would be Joseph E. McFadden. We'll have more on that as those numbers come in. In the Franklin School District, here's what the Republican returns look like. Major Smith, 216. John R. Phillips II, 180. Jamie Hages, 89. Veronica Santee, 164. Ron Richburg, 160. Brian Spade, 221. David Graham, 181. Tracy Lyda, 210. They were going to choose 4 there. The top vote getter appears to be Brian Spade, followed by Major Smith. Followed, third top vote getter would be Tracy Lyda. And it appears that it's pretty close here. David Graham would be number 4. So that's what it's looking like at that point with those 2 Venango County school districts. In Valley Grove, the numbers look like this on the Republican side. Nicole M. McGill, 234. John Beach, 205. Joan Beach. Melanie Anderson, 205. Vance Mays, 146. Paul Barger, 164. Todd Carson, 231. We'll bring it back up to the Democratic side. There's going to be a lot of scrolling here as we try to locate all of these particular races and bring them to you. Generally what happens here is this gets put up online, and the Democratic ballot is first. Let's see. Well, these are Venango County results. The results. There are some or some of the precincts that are in some of the other school districts, and we can tell you about that. We were just looking at the Republican side of the ticket there, and school director for Titusville, and this is from the Venango count on the Republican side. Lynn Cressman leading with 23 votes in that area. That she is the only one on the ballot for the Titusville School District in Venango County. For Pencrest, which means Plum Township in Venango County, the numbers are 51 for Stacy Porter, 26 for Timothy Brown, 34 for Jeffrey Brooks, and DeFrancesco has 32 at this point, and that's the Republican side. I have to go back up to the Democratic side to get the numbers for that. It'll be just a second or two before I locate all of those. This is not. So, Bob, you were talking about, you're saying that if this is correct, a non-endorsed candidate is in the lead here?
In Venango County. Now, this is a statewide race, and Paula Patrick, the fifth one on the card, is from Philadelphia County. So I'm guessing she'll pick up a ton of votes there and possibly pull that ahead. But yeah, last I saw the Venango County numbers, the first four Superior Court candidates on the ballot were leading.
Okay, and
they had, the state put these cards out and had us, at targeted precincts passing these out to educate voters as, to which, because, most people go into this, they have no idea who the judicial candidates are. And so we wanted them to know who the endorsed candidates and recommended by the Bar Association candidates were. Don't know how much difference that's made. We'll see.
We certainly will see toward the end. We've located the numbers for the Republican side of the ballot for the school director races that we've been keeping an eye on. Now this is the Republican side of the ticket, and the numbers are 120 for Robert Hicks, 97 for Nick Skakowski, 124 for Joseph E. McFadden, 142 for Chris Hibbard, Mark Kerr getting 107, Jonathan J. Piercy 90, looks like Diana S. Davis 161, Jeff Henry 39, Fred Weaver 113. For the Franklin area, Major Smith having 119, Brian Spade 106, John Phillips 42, Veronica Santee 116, Tracy Lida 107, Jamie Jesus 75, David Graham 86, Ron Richburg 84.
Where are you reading that from, Mark? Because I believe you read higher numbers for each of those candidates earlier.
This is the Republican side of the ballot. We looked at the Democratic side just a moment ago.
Right, but earlier it sounded like you're up over 200 on some of those in Franklin.
Well, let's see. This was with 65% of the.
Would they be counting those separately for the Republican side versus the Democratic
Well,
side?
it's a primary election, so. Oh, you're right, because these are the cross-filed candidates.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
absolutely. So
Gotcha.
We'll have to run back down the list here, but you're right. The numbers did seem to be a little bit higher on the Democratic side of the.
Interesting. So these Republicans got more votes on the Democrat side than they got on the Republican side.
It almost seems like that, yeah. And we're making these observations just as we're seeing the numbers come in. But again, here in the let's see, Pencrest area, which has only one precinct in Venango County, Robert Gulick showing 19 votes, Jerry Dean 20, Bill Slepsoff 6, Mark Jarrow 21, Brian Lynch 10, Terrence L. Dean 18, and Robert H. Johnston Jr. 7. When we look at the Titusville results, now this is interesting. They're showing results for James Cum, Kevin J. O'Neill, and Charlene Eggleston. Eggleston with 5, James E. Cum 7, Kevin J. O'Neill 7 votes. Not sure, just doing this off the top of my head, why there are some candidates listed and others not. It'll probably make sense in the morning when I take a better look at this. For Valley Grove, Todd Carson, 105, Melanie Anderson, 107, Paul Barger, 101. And those are the school board races that we were looking at in Venango County. Nothing new from Crawford County at this point, but we can tell you that the voter turnout overall, with 65% of the votes, or 65% of the precincts in, the total turnout is 21%, Democratic turnout at 17.05, and Republican turnout at 23.39. So better than 10%, but not very good at all at this point. So that's what we're looking at this point. Thoughts from anybody at this point?
Just it's disappointing to see such low numbers. It is hard to tell, this early in the night. A lot of the times you really can't tell who won some of those races until the next morning because of the slow reporting and the fact that it's a primary. So you have in some positions like school board where they cross miles. So
There weren't, in Venango County, there weren't that many contested positions, which it's the contests that drive the turnout.
True. We're seeing on the screen at this point some results from Pencrest School Board four-year seat. The results there showing with 8 of 18 precincts reporting in Crawford County, Jerry Dean with 280 votes, Robert Gullick with 272, Mark Jarrow with 264, Terrence Dean with 263, Travis Porter 140, Robert Johnston 103, Brian Lynch 98, and looks like Brian Slepzoff 83. Those are all for the four-year seats. There are 4 candidates for 2 of the two-year seats, and with 8 of 18 precincts reporting in Crawford County, we're showing Tracy Porter with 360, Timothy Brown 353, Jeffrey Brooks 338, and let's see, I think that's Luigi Aola Di Francesco, 300. So at that point, it looks like the top vote getters there, Brooks and Porter, for the two-year seats. So I suppose what's surprising for me is that this early in the evening, we're actually seeing results on the county websites that are being updated on a regular basis. Usually, if it's busier, they're a little further behind. And so we congratulate them. We thank them for their getting those numbers in. And we thank Carol for getting the numbers into us as well, watching the numbers in the back room there. So at this point, voter turnout that we're hearing estimated at about 10 to 12% in Crawford County, looking like the low 20s, 20, 21% in Venango County. Certainly better than 10 or 12, but certainly disappointing overall. When we start out the day beginning to report on this, one of the things that we report on are some of the things that would keep people from getting out to vote, like the weather, traffic, things like that. And certainly looking at the weather early this morning, it didn't look like it was very inviting at all, but as the day went on, certainly no excuse for getting out and staying.
It's too sunny.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm surprised it's as high as 20%. That means 1 out of 5 voters. I was at Franklin City Hall, the poll there, and anybody walking in they'd just go right to there was no line. Right. All day long there was no line, and so I'm surprised that it was that high. I would have expected it to be more like 1/4.
When I went to the polls, it was about...
I'm sorry, much lower number. 1/4 was a higher number. Math.
Darn math. When I went to the polls, it was about 7:30 till I got there, and the workers at the polls were actually sitting down, eating a sandwich, and
playing cards,
relaxing, and right.
That's the same thing they were doing at 1 o'clock when I was there. Yeah, there was. I actually got a chance to catch up with some neighbors at my polling precinct. We had about half an hour's time to talk. There just wasn't that much activity. I think I was in the low 30s by early afternoon.
Last year at that precinct that I vote at, there were lines all day long, all the way out the door. So I just don't know how we ended up with 1/5 with no line at all.
The only thing I can think of, and you and I talked about this a little bit earlier, was maybe there's just severe backlash from the election last November. I mean, to me, that's a rather poor excuse for not going out. But even so, voters are a fickle bunch.
Well, again, there were, in Venango County, there really weren't that many contests. And in fact, I didn't even realize until Friday that there was a contest on the state, I'm talking about the Republican side, that there was a contest here for the Superior Court. I just, basically, I thought only the endorsed candidates were running and only the number of candidates running as the number of positions to be filled. The only race that was really, I think, getting any attention in Venango County, countywide, was the coroner's race, which is, not a race that many people are excited about. We have an excellent coroner, and it sounds like she did very well, but it's not a race that you think, oh, I got to get out and vote for coroner.
Yeah. It's not a glamour vote, that's for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. That really was the only race in Venango County.
For the Republicans.
Yeah, for the Republican side at all. And I don't think the Democratic side had. I don't think the Democrats had very many candidates as well. We are being told we'll probably get a final update here for the evening for us in just about a moment from Jack Lynch over in Meadville with some more numbers, perhaps another candidate that we may be able to hear from, and perhaps we'll be hearing, if there's any solid numbers on the voter turnout in Crawford County. I think Jack was making an estimate there between 10 and 12% the last time that we spoke with him. If it operates any way the same that I'd seen it in Venango County, there is a continuous loop that scrolls in Election Central for folks to take a look at, and I think that's what he's working from as well. Just heard the phone ring. I think we'll have Jack here in just a moment.
You get state number.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Hello, Jack.
Can you hear me good, guys?
Absolutely.
General observation, low turnout, but the reports are coming in a little slow. So, we have the big screen over here. What I'd like to do is just give you the tops as we see them. In Client Region 2 on the Democratic side, the incumbent John Burnham is losing to Dot Luckhawk, 50 to 28. Region 1 Democrat is Teresa Miller, is a friend of David Schaaf, and School Director, Client Region 3, Don Ellis, 145, Democratic side. Pencrest, the big winner right now is Timothy Brown, 284 on Democratic side, and School Director in Corey, nothing. We have nothing from Titusville. We have nothing from Corey yet to report. And this is the one that we reported on earlier. 8 of 9 reporting precincts. Leroy is still ahead. That we projected that one, and we believe we're correct on that. 211 to the Deputy Mayor Sean Donahue, 171. For City Council, Sean Donahue is dual listed. He is head of Herbert Reed, 298 to 209. Republican Justice Supreme Court, Sally Mundy, 1,782. That's with 31 of 68, so we're not even halfway there. For the Judge of Commonwealth Court on the Republican side, we have Paul Lally, 1,731 to Christine Lozano Cannon, 1,287. The big vote getter here in the county is sitting right over here, Christine Kresiak, the incumbent treasurer, 2,183, followed by Patty Weatherby, Republican for the Clerk of Courts, 2,108. And in the Republican side on Crawford Central School District, the big holder right now is Jeanette Filippa, followed by Dawn I'll get to that first. Sacco, the screens are rolling. You got to roll with it. For Pencrest on the Republican side, that's been a hotly contested battle over there, as you may or may not know. Right now, Travis Porter at 394, followed by Jerry Dean at 317, Bob Kulik 353, and it goes down from there. That was a slate on the Republican side. You guys might know that kind of came out in self-support on the Republican side. School Director in Titusville, sorry folks, 0 of 11 reporting in. We don't have anything from Union City as of yet either. On the Republican side, on the dual-listed side, we have Dot Luckhawk, again, 89 over John Burnham, who is an incumbent, 56. So there's no real surprises here that we're seeing on any of these districts as they come in. We feel confident in the call that we made. I will not get a chance to talk to Sean Donahue. We're told he retired for the evening. So there's really nothing. I did want to report on one other thing here, that on the on the Meadville mayor side, you had John Battaglia, 218, and this is a Republican. Jim Roa, who kind of came out of retirement, is leading at 285 in front of John, who switched from Democrat to Republican for the purpose of this race. And we're going on from there. Just one other thing that I wanted to mention here on the school district side. Stacey Porter, Republican School District Director for Pencrest, is in the lead. And we have no update as well, unfortunately, from the city of Titusville with the Bromley-Fraser contest. We have nothing to report on that as well. It's been a little slow coming in. I think that was the consensus opinion here with the staff of the various news agencies that do this for a living. So we'd be happy to come back later and or sign off and just give you our thoughts. But we believe that there's no real surprises here in terms of what the anticipation was, at least around here, both on the school district side. And when I say that, the races that made news in the center part of the county, which would be both Pencrest and Crawford Central. And again, some of these folks are cross-listed, so they'll be going into the fall with their respective parties, but then again, the top vote-getters get in this time for those 2 seats. So we have, I wish we had something for you for, say, the eastern end of the county. Believe me, it's not because we don't love you, it's just because it's a longer traveling time, and sometimes those don't come in, and then when they do, they're updated as we go.
Jack, just a quick question for you. We're going to be going here in just a few moments, but have you had a chance to see or get a feel for what the actual voter turnout is at this point?
Yeah, we do. Mark, it's very disappointing. I think you can say with a pretty much a blanket statement that the range is anywhere between 10 and 13%. And I did speak to folks in the city that do this and have been poll workers for a very long time. They give us the actual numbers. In one case, it was 9%. And, you go back to things and people talk about weather and all of these kinds of variables that might influence an outcome. I think basically it comes down to that guy or that gal getting up in the morning and deciding that they're going to make time out of their day to go to their polling station. Everybody gets, and I think we all understand, a presidential election. But again, these races are keenly important for the local populace in terms of educating the children. You just can't put enough emphasis on that. We all have an opinion, particularly if you're vested in the system with kids, and now would be the time to come out and make your opinion known.
Jack, thank you.
We're getting very low.
I want to say thank you for being with us tonight and for all of your hard work over at Election Central. We certainly want to thank you for keeping us informed on the numbers at this point. So I guess we're going to sign off with you, but we say thanks quite a bit.
Thank you, Mark, and we'll talk to you guys then in the fall.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, sir, and have a good evening. Okay, we just heard from Jack Clinch over in Meadville. We're going to wrap up here in just a few moments. Real quick, around the table, Melissa?
I'd have to say I'm pretty disappointed with the turnout, especially in Crawford County, and I would encourage those that are watching that obviously they care about the election, and I would encourage those people to take a friend to the polls in the fall.
Bob, any final thoughts?
So far, what I've heard in Venango County sounds about like what I would have expected. I am concerned about this state Superior Court race, and we'll have to see. We were just checking the state returns. Philadelphia's 0 out of 1,000 something precincts reporting. So and she's from Philadelphia, so hopefully that last endorsed candidate will pick that up and win.
We'll certainly know by tomorrow morning, that's for sure. Alex?
Let's hope so.
Just a great night all around. Saddened with all the, numbers with the amount of people that have come out through an app, but other than that, great night. Had a blast being here and great conversations.
Well, we'll see you here in the fall then.
Definitely.
And Fred, thank you for being with us also. Final thoughts?
Oh, well, hopefully the general election will see greater turnout, and I'm pretty sure it will. And there's always surprises in local elections with write-ins and things like that. So hopefully people start paying attention as we get closer to November.
Well, many thanks to all of our panelists with us tonight.
I'd like to thank Fred for being civilized tonight.
Fred's always civilized. Very good. all of our panelists, many thanks. Bob Martin, Alex Motzer, Fred Smith, and Melissa Bergman. We want to say thanks to Fox's in Titusville Beverage, and Warner's Bakery. And we invite you to tune in with us tomorrow on Daybreak News and the Morning Drill. We'll have all of the results that are available at that point. And, well, we, again, thanks to all the guests here. Thank you to all of you who were with us tonight, viewing and listening. And we wish you a good night. We'll see you here in the fall.